Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Monday, August 15th Board of Commissioners meeting at 5 o'clock. We had a rather lengthy work session going over advisory board review and the historic Corolla Park Playground and the Maritime Museum times. At this time, I'll go ahead and call our 6 o'clock meeting to order, and I'll ask if the Vice Chairman would lead us in invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this wonderful county. A beautiful place to live, to raise children, to interact with our family, our friends. Father, thank you for the guests that you provide, that we could share our hospitality with. Lord, I pray that you would give us wisdom this evening as we consider and ponder the issues before this county. Father, I pray that you would grant each and every one of us wisdom as we go forth and as we hear these cases, Lord, that we would move and vote the way that you would have us vote. Father, I bless every single individual in this room tonight. Lord, I pray that their return home would be safe. Lord, thank you again for this evening. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Beaumont. And the next item is our ethics awareness and conflict of interest reminder, and I'll ask if our Chairman McCord or Commissioner McCord. Here we go.
Yeah, don't promote me to chairman, please.
Would please read that this evening for us.
Our ethics awareness and conflicts of interest reminder statement pursuant to GS 153A-44, Commissioner has a duty to vote on matters coming before the board, but may be excused from voting on issues involving the Commissioner's own financial interests, official conduct, or on matters on which the Commissioner is prohibited from voting under GS 14-234, 153A-340G, or 160A-388E2. In accordance with Chapter 2, Division 3 of the Currituck County Code of Ordinance, it is the duty of every Commissioner to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. And that's it. I mean, the second part would be right before we.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Commissioner McCord. The next is the approval agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda, or can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A motion and a second. Any further discussions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Agenda passes. Okay, the next item is the public comment portion of our meeting. This is a time for citizens to come before this board and have an uninterrupted time for 3 minutes to speak whatever you like, any comments, concerns that you want this board to hear without interruption. And when you get up here, if you could please state your name and address for the record, and you'll see there's some lights at the podium up there. When you get started, you'll see a green light. And when you get in close to 30 seconds, you'll see the yellow light come on. And when you see the red light, if you could just please wrap up your thoughts. And the first person I have signed up tonight is Mr. Tom Roddy. Again, if you come up and state your name and address, please, sir.
Hey, I'm Tom Roddy, 101 Beckmore Drive in Moyock. And I come before you tonight to discuss something that's been in social media lately. But as you are well aware, Currituck has no public outdoor basketball courts. The 2011 master plan called for 3 basketball courts. By 2011, we still have 0. We're the only locality within a full day's drive, that has 0. In 2016, a member of this board began the narrative that basketball courts increase crime and should not be included in county parks. Bob Cook, writing for Forbes magazine, looked into this narrative on basketball courts, and he's one of many. And what he came up with is that there's 0 statistical evidence that eliminating basketball courts plays any role in reducing crime. Cook notes, and this may not make you happy, that the call for removing basketball courts is a not so subtle, get the black people out of our parks undercurrent. All right, Bob Cook nailed it. Crime at basketball courts is non-existent. It's not even tracked by the FBI in the Uniform Crime Report. That's how non-existent it is. I spoke with every member of law enforcement leader from our own Currituck sheriff all the way to Raleigh, and no one would touch this narrative. Not one person. In 3 separate surveys by Parks and Recs, they suggested possible amenities at parks, but they did not include basketball courts as an option. They did include bocce-ball courts, pickleball courts. Basketball courts are the #1 amenity other than a playground at parks nationwide. And what's really surprising here is an email from Parks and Recs Director Jason Weeks to the county manager, Dan Scanlon at the time, I believe, wrote that the number of respondents to the surveys wanting bocce-ball courts and pickleball courts was probably so low due to the fact that no one knows what it is. Those are his words. But our newest park in Moyock, bocce-ball courts, pickleball courts, not a single basketball court. Veritas Currituck, as you know, reviewed 5,000 records under public records requests from the county, state, and federal government on this issue. Contractors over the years, we have statements from them. The details and facts derived from all these records, I have to tell you, paint a very unpleasant picture. It's time to correct the wrong that's gone on in this county now for 14 years and set aside this narrative that's non-existent, does not exist, and carry out the master plan from 2011. We don't need a new master plan today. I'm not saying we really don't, but, and we don't need a new survey. We know what we need. We know what was called to be built. I suggest that you consider building it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodney. Regarding basketball courts, I'll ask the county manager, I mean, do we have them in the county right now?
Well, yes, certainly all the public schools, most of the public schools have outdoor basketball courts. There are 9 courts of different configurations, whether half court or full court, with a total of 15 goals. We're also aware of some of the churches in the community that also have outdoor basketball courts. In
The
fact,
one in Grandy has a really,
I
really
drove by
nice
that
one.
one Friday
Yeah,
night, and there
that
was
was-
a basketball game underway. So there are opportunities for folks who are interested in playing basketball to do so. We also have indoor basketball courts at the county's recreation center in Maple. I think it's a misnomer to say the county has removed basketball courts from its parks. I don't believe that is the case. And the county has taken into consideration, as it has created recreational amenities for the public, what the public's demand and request are for recreational activity. For example, you remember in Moyock Park, there was originally included a splash pad, and it was decided at some point that just was not appropriate at the time, and so a splash pad wasn't added, although there was some interest in the community. You also may remember that when the county was considering building its own recreation center in Maple, the original plan called for racquetball or handball courts. And as we entered into a partnership with the YMCA, they indicated to us, well, that was now an old model, and people weren't interested in those types of recreational activities, and advised us to leave that out of our proposed recreation plan, which we did. So that's just an example of showing that the community's view on what type of amenities they want to see in their parks differs over time. We do have a 2011 Parks and Recreation plan at this time, but that's currently undergoing a rewrite, and so it'd be interesting to see what the outcome is of that recreation plan as expressed, much like the land use plan, by the community, of what it values and wants to see incorporated within its recreational opportunities.
And may I just say,
Yeah.
I'm a member at Mount Zion in Grandy, and my son and his peers were instrumental in helping our church get the grant to provide those. They are open to the public. There's a couple rules like profanity and certain things, alcohol, that our church kind of frowns upon. But other than that, they are open, and I would invite people to utilize them. It's a fantastic full court, and it's there, and I think it's one example of a partnership with the community that churches try to provide. So certainly encourage that use.
I'd like to add one thing, too, as far as the commissioner that sits on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. You know, we have our basketball leagues for the youth, which a few years back we expanded to the 13 to 15. Most of the time when those kids get older and they can play middle school sports, we didn't have those leagues. So we had a tough time fielding teams, so Parks and Rec went out and we played. I remember we played Gates County, we played Camden, different counties, because we only had, you don't want to play the same team like 6 games if you had 2 teams in Currituck. And it was actually a co-ed team because there was a couple females on the team because we didn't have enough for our team here. As well as we also have the men's league every year, which fields teams from Elizabeth City, Currituck, even people from Dare. You know, so they have a successful men's league. You know, so I mean, like I said, it's available. One thing I would like that we could possibly do, and I know they've done it before, and you'd have to have county staff. Other counties do it, and I actually spoke to Jason Weeks. We didn't really go into major detail, but possibly like maybe one night a month have like open gym night, not weekly, one night a month, maybe a open gym night at our recreation center, which you'd have to staff it with a county employee, you know, because somebody's got to clean it up, somebody's got to be responsible to lock it up and shut the lights down. I don't know if that's something, if we tried it a couple times and see if the demand was there, if you had, you know, 4 people show up, obviously it's probably not that much of a demand, but if you had 40 people show up, you know, maybe. But that's something I was going to bring up at our next Parks and Rec Advisory Board. So.
Okay. All right. I have no one else signed up for the public comment portion of this. Anybody signed up or showed up late that would like to speak at public comment?
I would have been right.
Yes, sir. Please, if you just come state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name's Ken Langford, 774 Hunt Club Drive, Corolla. I own OBX Beach Buggies in Palace Point, 8604 Currituck Highway. You've got something on the agenda where I think a gentleman's asking to open a similar business to us to sell LSVs. We're also a North Carolina licensed dealer. And we're all for that. I'm all for competition and happy to walk up to the community. Excuse me. But I just thought that him having the name Beach Buggy and we're OBX Beach Buggies and a few miles apart seemed, you know, it seemed a little confusing, maybe for the customer standpoint. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. Is there anyone else that didn't get a chance to sign up to like to speak in a public comment?
I want to speak again.
Well,
One quick statement. I'll come back next month and answer Mike's questions. Is there's a little bit exaggerated?
okay. Well, I mean, remember the good thing we have here. We've already, Mr. Roddy, you had your 3 minutes already up here. So if you'd like to come back to the next meeting, that'd be great. There's another gentleman. Come on up, sir. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Al Kwasnick, 100 Indian Kettle Road, Jarvisburg. I'm here today to talk about the proposed subdivision to go in on Indian Kettle Road. I have a couple letters for people that public hearing.
Excuse me, sir. We're going to have a public comment on all the other issues. There's going to be a public comment piece of all the items that come before us. That might be more appropriate if that's what you want to speak about. Yeah, this is just public comment for in general discussions. We're going to have a public comment portion or public hearing for each item, the subdivision and the beach buggy. That's going to be invited for people to speak on that. So I just wanted so that people just know if you're going to speak on that, we will have a session for that. This is strictly just for the public comment for general questions or comments that anybody's got. So. Anyone else, just some general statements right now? Okay, if not, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of this. And we're going to move into our first item, which is the Commissioner's Report, which I'm going to start on my left today and start with Commissioner Selena Jarvis.
Okay. I want to apologize up front for the length of the Commissioner's report that I'm about to give. But let me say it's because this board gave me the amazing opportunity to go to the NCACC conference last week, and it was an amazing experience. NACO was a different kind of experience, more partisan than it really should be. But this was an informative, nonpartisan, bipartisan effort to make counties better. And I just want to hit on, I could talk for an hour, but nobody wants that. But I want to hit on three things that really will stick with me and hopefully allow me the courage to take this county forward. So first, I had the opportunity to attend the first annual 100 Counties Prepared training. This course outlined all types of emergencies that could occur in a county, whether it's a flood, a hurricane, a fire, an active shooter, all kinds of things. And it focused on how we as a board can stay in our lane and help make the response better. We heard from the North Carolina Emergency Management Director, personnel, county EMS personnel, and Mary Beth got a shout out, and I agreed that she is awesome. A communication specialist, and even former FEMA personnel. And I came away with so many resources and so many questions, and I thank County Manager McCree in advance for listening to me next Monday as I probe those questions to make our county better as we move forward. Second, at the opening session on Friday, we heard from author Beth Macy, who wrote the best-selling book, and of course the Netflix series is based on it, called Dope Sick. And it's about the opioid epidemic and her views on how we try to help put an end to the death and destruction that this deadly addiction causes. And while some of her approaches are very radical and daunting, I do agree that we have to do something to stop this destruction and the death and the devastation that it causes families here in our own community. Over the next 17 years, Currituck County will receive $1,202,885 for us to use to turn the tide of this epidemic. The money has to be used to solve the crisis, and I look forward to working with our staff and our commissioners to do the best we can to sit down with community stakeholders, to sit down and really map out a strategy to help us use these dollars to help stop the effects of the epidemic. I'm almost done. Finally, no matter what session I went to over those 3 days, one word kept coming up, and it was the word visioning. And we have to have a vision to move this county forward. Every year we get a map, a book of maps that tells where our county ranks. For those who don't know, North Carolina, Currituck County was ranked #1 in growth of all 100 counties. We grew 4.5% last year. We are 29th in the nation, 29th out of all the thousands of counties in the country. And I know if you drive through Moyock, that doesn't surprise you about growth. But we have to do better at planning for school construction, not just one elementary school down the road, really having the vision how we solve that problem. Infrastructure. Rooftops are going to come, but we've got to have the infrastructure to support businesses. That includes water, wastewater, all of those things. Broadband, which I attended a session on it that was fantastic. Housing developments may make us grow, but they are not going to help our county thrive in and of themselves. So I ask my county commissioners to work together to come up with a plan to help us move forward and to have a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jarvis. Commissioner Etheridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I realize that the commissioners' reports are to inform the public about serving on advisory boards and attending conferences and events like Ms. Jarvis just did. But I'd like to ask the board's indulgence because I would be remiss if I did not thank a few people tonight. We hear a lot about in our world bad news, bad and uncaring people, but here in Currituck County, that's not the case. A few weeks ago, while I was attending the National Association of Counties with Commissioner Jarvis, my husband fell off his tractor, and he fell where he was not very visible and broke his hip. After about an hour, he was able to slide a little bit so he could wave his cap, and a young man who works for Commercial Ready Mix in Moyock, Daryl Futrell, saw the cap and he blew his horn, and at that time my husband kept waving him to come. And so Daryl pulled over a cement truck and came over to investigate what was going on. Thank goodness this young man took his time out of his day of work to be a good Samaritan, and thank you again, Daryl. Also, a lady and her husband and her son stopped to help, but nobody seems to know who they are. But whoever you are, we'd like to thank you also for helping out. And I want to thank our neighbors, too, Julie Meggs and Christy Roberts. Without their help, this wouldn't have gone as smoothly as it did go, being out of town. They are both the true definition of good neighbors. And as always, I'd like to thank our 911 and EMT services because they gave us a prompt response. And I'm happy to report that my husband is improving daily. And I'd just like to thank everyone for their help and let people know there are good people still out in this world. And I miss not going to the state conference with Selena, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Etheridge. Commissioner White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't be a little long-winded tonight, too, since we got a crowd. This past week, a couple weeks ago, as anybody that's been in Corolla knows, we had a fire out there in the Monterey Pines condos, and a lot of families were displaced. And there's some different rumors and innuendo going around, so I said, got with the county manager, the chairman, and the vice chairman to have a meeting to discuss an after action, what happened, what do we do right, what do we do wrong, and what can we fix for the future. And so the three of us met with the water department, fire and EMS, Corolla Fire was here, the chief from the Corolla Fire Department was here, and county manager, as well as other county staff. And as I said, the reason was really to have a debrief and talk about what went right and what went wrong. And through that, we've learned that there was, communication issues between the fire departments would go out and check a hydrant, and they weren't quite reporting it to the right person, or the language wasn't appropriate for what they were trying to describe was going on. And so we had a hydrant there that was putting out water but wasn't putting out enough water, and they left it in service because it was partially working, and instead of bagging it and taking it offline. I also learned, interestingly enough, that we have 5 different fire extinguishers or fire hydrants in this county. We probably have 100 different fire extinguishers, but and the water department is looking at maybe standardizing that a little bit and getting down to a couple different suppliers so that that's more standardized. All in all, I came away with a very positive from this meeting that we had fixed some things going forward, and help increase communication is ultimately the goal between fire and EMS and the water department and anyone else that needs to be involved in making sure that these fire hydrants are online, they're working properly, and they're fixed in an appropriate manner. For one to sit for a couple months because we didn't have parts to fix it is not really in anybody's best interest. So we need to do better about doing that, and I think we're going to take care of that going forward. I think that was it for me tonight, Mr. Chairman. That's a long-winded enough.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Commissioner White. I'll just piggyback a little bit. Yeah, that was a good meeting. A lot of good things came out of that meeting, and I believe we're going to incorporate the Mainland fire departments as well with this to make sure we're all on the same page. A lot of standardization, communication, I think, has ended up being the key issue there, and everything we can do to make it keep our citizens safe and do things to ensure their safety out there is what's important. And training for firefighters. I mean, it's been hot this summer. Getting on the roads, those gears, the training they do. Just keep them in your thoughts and prayers out there. Traffic's still bad out there. Let's see. I also sit on the Alberta Regional Health Services Executive Board, and The board has selected, for those who did not know, a new director for the Albemarle Regional Health. It's Ashley Stoops. She's been involved with the Albemarle Regional Health for years, and she has the qualifications and the experience, and she's going to be starting August 15th. She'll be active as the Albemarle Regional Health Director. And lastly, we're starting to get into our peak hurricane season in September. So be careful, get your plans ready. They're starting to get a little active out there. And if you haven't signed up for the alerts from Currituck County, I believe you call, is it Emergency Management Office? So you can sign up to get your number listed for the alerts, to get messages sent out. And is that correct?
Yes.
Is it just the Emergency Management Office? Okay.
That's correct.
All right, so you can contact them and get your cell number listed, and you can get all the latest updates and alerts and warnings, and just keep in tune of the county website, too, as they get closer, and we keep everybody abreast. And that's all I have for this evening. Our Vice Chairman Beaumont.
So to piggyback on the piggyback, a couple of the other, and again, I would also affirm that it was a great meeting that we had, in opening the lines of communication and ensuring accountability, as well as, not the least was the takeaway was actually knowing exactly kind of what went on and going to the what went right. So one of the things that went right in kind of a bizarre twist was we had a company that was out responding to a false alarm. On their way back is when they viewed the fire and smelled the smoke and were able to respond. So on the right side of the house, they were on site faster than it would have been had they been in the station and been called out. So also, when arriving at the scene, the fire was already through the roof. So at that point, once you get to that level and the fact that the condominium had been evacuated, the first thing that the department's going to do is go into a defensive mode to protect the structures around. At no time did our firefighters run out of water. So many folks may not realize we roll tankers, which have thousands of gallons of water, and each engine itself is capable of engaging in fire without even hooking up to a fire hydrant. So the tactic was they laid in a line, started pumping to everybody. So despite the fact that that hydrant had challenges, the fire department had everything they needed to combat the fire at the time. And there were some great takeaways that came out of that. One of the most interesting ones were the decision was made to switch out the hydrant. And I don't know if you got the report on the pressure and the flow.
I have not seen a flow report
So
yet.
the flow report was it's putting out over 700
The new
gallons.
hydrant.
The new hydrant. So one of the things I like, and I too did not realize we had hydrants on the shelf, right? But one of the values of doing that is I think, there may have been some structural challenges with that hydrant itself, and by removing a hydrant and replacing a hydrant, I think that may address the county's engineer did not understand why the flow rate was so low on that hydrant. This is something that we'll look into further. So anyway, it was a very productive meeting, and look forward to improving service countywide. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Beaumont. And we have Commissioner McCord over there. And
I have my list.
do we need more than
It's-
3
no,
minutes there? For
It's not, it's not.
All
I mean, we'll do speed, Commissioner,
Okay.
comment. A lot of good events that we've had in the past few weeks. Currituck Kids event was very successful at the extension and the YMCA. I believe they had over 200 and some kids the year before, and it may have been due to COVID. I mean, it was like a third of that. So great event. They always put on good events. They always have great participation as well as attendance. The flotilla was off the charts. They were very busy. We had a wellness event this Sunday at the extension building, which I participated in at the Sheriff's Department. I think it was a really, really good event. There was tons of free stuff and involved for citizens of the county. I think they did a good job promoting it, but a lot of times your wellness events, maybe towards your elderly population, I don't know if maybe the day was the best day, but there's always so much stuff going on. But Chip Melton and his staff, Chris Bailey and those guys, they did a really, really good job putting it together. We cleaned up the extension building 100% before we left, made sure everything was put in place, so we didn't get yelled at. So those are just a few. 8/10, August 10th, 22, I mean, the Batmobile was in the county down there by the, I don't know, Selena, if you saw it, by the Culligan Water Companies. They did 100 visits. Obviously, we have 100 counties, so 100 visits, 100 counties, 100 days. We had an event with the Highway Patrol, the Sheriff's Office, and we worked the new 45 zone, which went into place 7/27/22. It's 27 45-mile-per-hour speed limit signs. If you don't see those, you probably shouldn't be driving. So that was an event we did down there, which is the Batmobile. It's not like a Batmobile like the car. It's a big thing where a lot of times when they do checkpoints, DWI checkpoints throughout the state, it's really, really good. And this was something we participated in. Upcoming events, Aviation Day, September 24th. It's on the county website. William does an awesome job with all the stuff he does there. It's a little far out, but or no, that one's not. The 8th of October, 2022, National Night Out is like the first or second Tuesday in August. First Tuesday in August. We didn't participate in that this year at the Sheriff's Office. We did last year, and the reason why we didn't participate, it was about 100 degrees. We had over 100 people attend, but we're going to do like our own event, which is October 8th, this year. From 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the high school. And we're going to do it at the high school because we have a ton of vendors, ton of events. Feel free to attend. It's a free event unless you want to buy food and beverages from the food trucks that we have. Tons of stuff for kids, tons of stuff for adults. Please attend. The following Saturday, the fire department has their community day in Moyock, which I know the Sheriff's Office, we're participating in that. County staff, everybody does a great job. We live in a great place. Like I said, it's been busy. The traffic's crazy. Prayers for law enforcement. In the last 3 weeks, we've had 5 law enforcement officers shot in 3 weeks. That's sad. 13 total shot in 2022. 2 died. I just got an email today that the Sheriff's Association to the Wake County officer that was shot and killed was offering a $100,000 reward to the coward who shot and killed him. I doubt he's watching this meeting, whoever he or she is. But like I said, I thought that was pretty cool. Somebody's going to snitch for $100,000. I'll just put that out there. And final note, the Christmas parade's the first Friday, December 2nd. I'm going to put it out there a lot because I'm going to hit Dennis Anderson up and see if I can't get him and get Gravedigger out there, King Sling or something. It's going to be big. It was huge last year, but it'll be bigger this year. If you want to sign up for that, contact me. I'm in charge of that. I think that's it.
Thank
I was
you.
under Selena's time, barely.
That's okay.
You got a stopwatch over here.
And welcome Owen back, too, because I'm glad he's
Thank
back
you,
on.
Commissioner McCourt. And finally, Commissioner Etheridge. Good to see you back, sir.
Thank you, sir. Like the other Commissioner Etheridge, there's a lot of people I need to thank, which I will forego names, but I would like to thank Currituck EMS. I did have the opportunity to be chauffeured up to the hospital. But very professional staff, and I'm very grateful for the type of service that they rendered not only to me but to all our citizens and guests that visit with us. Once again, I'm going to harp on the need for DOT to complete the turn lane off Tulse Creek Road into Currituck Highway. It's ridiculous to see the traffic lined up down Tulse Creek Road for half a mile trying to get out on Currituck Highway in the mornings. That's a safety issue, and that's been talked about when I was on the board previously. We also need for a traffic study to be done through Moyock because people are complaining to me about the speeds that people are going through Moyock.
70's a problem?
Pardon?
70's a problem?
Yeah. But I would like to request DOT do a traffic safety study through Moyock about the possibility of some way slowing that traffic down because
But when that stoplight starts getting active at
South Mills.
yeah, that's going to start slowing some down, I'm sure.
yeah, but then it's a drag race to the
Well,
next
yeah.
one. And then it's a drag race
The
to
next
the next
one, the next, yeah.
So we need to do that. I've been approached by a gentleman with the U.S. Motto Action Committee about displaying "In God We Trust" on our county buildings. There's 65 counties in North Carolina that already do that, 49 towns, and he'd like to come and make a formal presentation to the board about what they are trying to do, and it's the U.S. Motto Action Committee. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to be back, and it's good to be back.
Thank you, Commissioner Etheridge. And Vice Chairman Beaumont, you had to add something. You said-
Yeah, I keep forgetting, what is the Aviation Day?
September 24th.
Yes, September 24th.
So just as a reminder, Aviation Day was great the last time it was held.
Yes.
If William can pull it off this year, he's trying to get an F4U Corsair and a P-51 Mustang as our classic warbirds, which would be...
Wow.
And he will be here September 19th meeting to speak about Aviation Day and also about all the good things that have been happening in the last
Got
couple
it.
of years at our airport.
I think it's 10 to 3 is the time, but don't hold me to that.
Anyway, they actually had performing aircraft, so it was amazing last time. It's going to be even better this year.
It is.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, next is our county manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with the commissioners that attended last week's hydrant meeting. From a staff perspective, it was very positive. Afterwards, I spoke with the staff that attended and all left the meeting feeling good about it and looking forward to better communication and better operation between water and our fire departments to make sure that our hydrants are properly maintained and operational. So that was a good outcome. On October 10th, or the week of October 10th, our consultants we've retained to give us a plan and recommendation with regard to Moyock wastewater plant will be prepared to present their report. I spoke with the chairman about it a little bit, and I think Commissioner White, it might be a good time if the board can find a couple of days the week of October 10th to come together for like a mini retreat. First of all, it's going to be several hours of receiving our consultant's report. And then there's a number of other items, as you all have been talking about today, and a number of items from the beach and debriefing after the summer that we need to start working on. So I think I'll have Samantha Evans, my administrative assistant, to reach out to the board starting tomorrow to get some days that might be good and times that might be good the week of October 10th.
And we'll get some feedback from board options and whatnot and figure out how many days we think. So, but we'll get that interesting. So I think it's good to pre-plan. a little
What
bit.
was the date of they're coming the 10th or the week of the 10th?
The week of October 10th. They haven't set a specific date, but
Okay.
the week of October 10th, they would be prepared to appear.
Present.
So keep up with your emails for some information, kind of get some ideas what's good days and all that.
Then this Thursday, there's a meeting with continuing the design concept review for the Tulse Creek Elementary School. That'll be between the design builder, contractor, the architect, and county staff as that project continues to move along. Last week, participated in a telephone conference with the local government commission, which is the entity within the Department of State Treasurer that oversees all the financing of cities and counties in the state. We just had an initial conversation with them to let them understand and know that this will be coming forward in the next year or so. Interestingly, Commissioner Owen Etheridge had asked me to ask them about the difference between interest rates they're seeing if it's a bond issue versus installment purchase financing, which we have in the last number of years traditionally been using the installment purchase financing method. Interestingly, the interest rates were pretty much together right now, 3.1 to 3.4% range is what they're seeing. And then with regard to DOT issues, I received an email today from the DOT district engineer and his staff. They want to meet in the next couple of weeks with me and other county staff to talk about, specifically, they want to talk about Edgewater Drive.
Edgewater Road.
Or Edgewater, I'm sorry. I wrote down Edgewater
Drive is
Road.
Grandy.
And the solutions that the county might like to see. Probably I ask maybe you attend, Commissioner
I would
Jarvis.
love to, and I promise I'll behave.
Okay. And I'll bring up, Commissioner Etheridge, those items that you also brought up tonight at that meeting. And there is also underway the discussion and design with Dominion Power for the location of a light and a pole and a light there at that intersection to help
At Edgewater.
at Edgewater to help cure the issues of people oversteering and driving into the ditches.
Good.
That's all I
That's
have,
the one
Mr.
that,
Chairman.
is that's where me and you talked about on the location of that the other day.
Each corner, yes, would
Yeah.
be
Good.
the best corner.
Good.
At Edgewater Road on
At
the
Edgewater
left if
Road.
you're
Yeah.
heading towards the sound.
Good. That's good. Yeah, good.
Yeah, we did.
That's
we,
all I have.
That's
we
all you
discussed
had.
that.
Okay, all right, thank you. And next is our county attorney's report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Within the last 2 weeks of my employment, so we're now on week 3, I sent 2 demand letters for some code violations. Both hopefully will comply before the deadline, so hopefully we will not have to go to court for those matters. I, like Ike, attended the local government commission meeting last week. That was very informative. Today, I drafted an amendment to our nuisance ordinance, so hopefully that will come before you at the next meeting, just to clean some things up, define some terms, contain the proper lawful procedure for enforcing those nuisance violations, and I will do the same with the animals ordinance, that chapter as well. There needs to be a few things cleared up. So I'm reworking those. I have familiarized myself with our contracting system we have, where we review every contract that comes through. It is amazing. It goes through so many different people. The final one is Sandra Hill, the finance director, if she needs to put the pre-audit certification. But it goes through the drafter, and then it goes through my paralegal, and then myself, Ike. So that is great. We've been working on an easement for a water main at the Coinjock Canal, so I think we'll hopefully have that wrapped up soon. I was supposed to go to court last week for a motion to quash a subpoena that was issued to the Sheriff's Department. That got continued to, I think, September 8th. It probably get continued again, but I'm prepared for that. There's been a very large public records request for DSS for a matter that I've been working on that's going to take some time. And I think I mentioned this at the last meeting. I'll be attending the County Attorney's Conference at the end of this month. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I have one other thing to share. It's not quite related to being the county attorney, but it will hang in my office. So I wanted to share this picture that Mr. Ely framed for me last week.
Oh.
It's from the Currituck Times, 1996. I don't know when this stopped running, but it is my late grandfather, Graham Keaton, who I love dearly. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2020, but he is pictured here crabbing in the Currituck Sound, which he did for a very long time. Most of you probably know him, some people in the audience. He was a crabber, a fisherman, a farmer.
A
He
deputy.
retired with the sheriff's office. Yes, he was a sergeant with the sheriff's office.
He was a golfer.
He was a jack of all trades.
Yes, so he had peach trees before the
yeah.
collards, the best peaches
Remember
in
those.
this world. And he had about 170 peach trees, and then the collard patch, which he was the king of collards according to the Daily Advance a couple of times. And he sold insurance at one time. He had his pilot's license, so he was amazing. But above all, he had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. So I'm going to be hanging this in my office because he is a true Currituck legend and a hero to me and to many. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. Okay, our next item is our public hearings, and these we got 2 of them, and they're going to be quasi judicial. So the first one is PB 22-10, Beach Buggy LLC, use permit request for auto sales and rental use to sell low-speed electric vehicles located at 5760 Currituck Highway, tax map 84, parcel 30E, Poplar Branch Township. Use permit public hearing for low-speed electric vehicle sales, Currituck Highway, Poplar Branch. I guess that's TWB. Anyways, anybody who's going to testify up here, please come forward. If you're going to speak in the public comment or provide testimony, I need you to come forward and please be sworn in at this time. There's some Bibles up front. If you could grab a Bible, and we'll get everybody up there. If you could raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear the testimony that you provide tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, I believe I'll get started off with Director Kevin. I believe you can lead us off here.
Sir, thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members of the Commission. As you said, this is an application for a special use permit for the sale of low-speed electric vehicles. I don't know if you're seeing the slideshow up there, but the site is a 10-acre site. It's located about 15 miles south of here, just north of Macedonia Church Road. Here is a more zoomed-in view. You may recognize the site. Currently on the site, there's a fenced area with a few vehicles on it. Originally, this was going to be for the sales of golf carts, which is a retail sales and does not require a special use permit. However, when it became aware that they're selling low-speed electric vehicles, they pursued this request for a special use permit. The site is zoned general business. It is a limited service area in the comprehensive plan. As I mentioned, it does require a special use permit. It is considered automobile sales. As such, we refer to Section 4.24 I3 for the use regulations. This looks at the size, display, lighting, and storage of vehicles. Staff has evaluated the site to these standards, and it is in compliance. Here's the site plan. There is one entrance off Currituck Highway. There are 4 paved spaces, one of which is handicapped. There is a dumpster pad. It is screened from view from the highway as it's located, let's see, right here behind the building. The site will be planted with shade trees. The required landscaping buffer along the highway will be installed, as well as shrubs along the building. The building itself is a metal building. There is a TRC condition that the applicant will work with staff to make sure that the non-residential guidelines of the UDO design guidelines are met. The site is also, I forgot to mention, the site is served by county water and will be on septic. So with that, I will leave up here the 4 review standards to consider. That 1, it does not endanger public health or safety. 2, it does not injure the value of adjoining properties. 3, it is in conformity with the land use plan. And finally, it does not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. With that, I stand by for any questions before I turn it over to the applicant.
Any questions from the board at this time? If not, thank you. We'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Attorney Tim Kohler. I'm with the East Carolina Law Group. I represent the applicant, NC Beach Buggy LLC. I actually before this body about a year ago asking for a use permit on an existing building. And as it were, my client's business has done well. It's grown and thrived, and they're ready to move into a new facility and have procured a piece of property and have asked to have a use permit issued so that they can continue with their construction project. So with that, I would call first my client and ask that he come up and go through the various compliance standards. Would you please state your full name?
My name is Brandon Randolph Reed.
Mr. Reed, what is your relationship and capacity as it relates to NC Beach Buggy?
I'm a member of the LLC.
Okay, and as such, are you the person?
Yes, I'm the dealer operator. So.
Okay, and are you the applicant as far as
yes
for the use permit? Okay, so as far as the use permit review standards, you've indicated in the application that the use will not endanger public health and safety. Is there any other any further comment you'd like to make on that?
No,
Is there any hazardous materials or anything that's generated throughout your
we
building
don't
business?
generate any hazardous materials.
Okay, and are you doing any sort of activities on the property that could be considered inherently dangerous?
No.
Can you tell the body what your actual business practice will be?
It's selling low-speed vehicles.
Okay.
Low-speed vehicles. We're authorized dealer for Star. Star EV is the nation's largest producer of low-speed vehicles. They're based out of South Carolina, and we're going to be their authorized dealer for the Outer Banks.
And just briefly while we're here, there was some question raised by OBX Beach. Let me just take a moment to address that briefly. Is your business going to be engaged in the activity of renting low-speed electric vehicles?
No, it'll be sales of low-speed vehicles. And much like Ford, all of those type of dealerships have an underlying LLC. We will have a DBA that's Star of OBX because those are the only vehicles we sell, and we will live that. We just haven't gone through that stage yet. We're trying to do one thing at a time here.
Okay. So your LLC is going to continue to be NC Beach Buggy, but you're going to advertise as Star of OBX.
Correct. So that way it would avoid any confusion.
As far as the community services, as has already been stated, you're going to be on county water as well as on septic.
Correct.
Right? Okay. All right. And as far as have you engaged somebody to conduct an economic impact study for your property?
Yes, we have.
All right. And who have you engaged for that?
Mr. Stephen Craddock.
All right. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, I would ask to call Mr. Stephen Craddock.
If we could, before you, I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
It's fine.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Jump in.
So you're doing sales. Who's doing service work or repairs on them? Are you handling that in-house, or do they have to take it somewhere else?
Beach Ready has been doing most of our service repair work.
Okay. So if you have batteries and storage issues and those kinds of things, that wouldn't be on this property? I mean, these are electric vehicles, right?
They are, and they ship. We only sell new vehicles, so they ship to us with the battery in the vehicle. We're not storing batteries or anything like that.
Okay.
Do no parts or nothing like that?
But we might have some parts for different
Not
vehicles.
batteries or anything like
No.
Yes, sir.
And two, in our agenda packet, it says, use permit request for auto sales and rental use to sell low speed. There is no rental use?
We won't be doing rentals, no.
Okay.
We're only a sales dealership, but the use permit is auto sales and rentals.
Okay, that's just okay. And then one more question, as Commissioner Whitehall asked, as far as somebody purchases, there won't be any maintenance or any repairs done at that site? Will it
We
be
don't have any plans to do any kind of facility to repair them as right now, no.
Okay.
Like I said, Beach Ready's been doing most of our repairs.
Thank you.
And then just real quick, a couple of times you've said right now, or
I picked up on
what's
As
that?
our business
No, I picked up on
grows,
that,
I mean,
too.
we may end up needing to do some kind of expansion build. I mean, I hope I have a great, wonderful business, and eventually I do have a facility that can do repairs. But this building is only for the sale of automobiles. It's for our indoor showroom and this sort of thing.
The point I'm trying to get to is anything like that would be considered an expansion of your use permit, and that would
Exactly.
require this entire process again. And I would also, part of the reason we're here is, we watched a fencing with a bunch of electric vehicles parked and coming and going, which is, of course, against use policy with the county. And, so the precedent right now is you do it until someone tells you no. And I would just want to make sure for the record, because you're under oath, that you know that any expansion of this, you will be in violation of your use permit, and then we will consider revoking it. So I know we're a rural county and stuff like that, but we're actually pretty spot on when it comes to following our ordinances as best we can.
I do understand, sir. Yes.
Sir, may I have a moment?
Yes.
The fencing. So,
Yeah,
so,
understood.
yeah.
And if I may, can I
Yes.
ask a couple follow-up questions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Reed, as far as parts and anything that you would have on site, would those be aftermarket accessories and things of that
Like a
nature.
sound bar or something of that nature.
So we're not talking about repair, replacement parts.
Correct.
And when you say eventually wanting to have some type of, maybe expanding some kind of maintenance, as already been stated, you understand you have to come back for another use permit to do it on this site.
Yes, absolutely.
And when you talk about possibly having a maintenance division at some point, would that entail possibly another different location?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we're not talking about this site. This site is
This
just
site
for
is still
sales.
Yes.
Okay.
No, yes, sir.
What's the acreage of that property? I know it's probably
It's about 10.
10.
Any other questions at this time for Mr. Reed? Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, sir. And if I may, I would call Mr. Stephen Craddock, and if I may approach, I have a few
No,
documents. I'd
that's
like to
fine,
share
yep,
with the
come
board.
on.
I made some copies, and I don't know that I have one copy. This is Mr. Craddock's resume CD. This is a copy of the report he's prepared for the board's consideration, and some company photographs. They're cumulatively attached.
Has this changed? Just checking. You might have a couple more pages.
Probably a couple more pages added.
Please make sure that they're next time.
It's like there's 2 pages of this as well.
You heard it down to the last one. Right.
Try not to much too much.
While we're waiting, real quick, it states that the applicant's going to be installing a new fire hydrant. Is that a county requirement, I guess, to Kevin?
Yes, it's
Okay. And do we know, have we spec'd the type, going back to Thursday's meeting?
we certainly will.
Okay. I'm not, I'm, gee whiz.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I believe the last consideration for issuance of the use permit pending before the board tonight is the determination from an economic impact study that's been conducted. So with that being said, I would tender Mr. Craddock as my witness, and I would just begin that. Would you please state your full name for the board, please?
Yes, Stephen Wayne Craddock,
And Mr. Craddock, what is your area of expertise, sir?
real estate appraisal.
All right, and can you state your education and experiential background for the board, please?
I attended Elizabeth City State University and majored in mathematics with a concentration in statistics and computer science.
All right. And how long have you been working in real estate, sir?
20 years.
All right. And do you have any other advanced education in terms of real estate appraisal or any other type of advanced training?
I do in many aspects of real estate appraisal, as well as being designated by 4 different entities.
All right. And which entities are those, sir?
That would be the North Carolina Professional Appraisers Coalition, the Institute of Housing Technologies, a certified distance education instructor, and a real estate appraiser certification from the National Association of Realtors.
All right. And have you ever appeared before a court or a body such as this before and testified as an expert?
Many times.
All right. And have you done so in Currituck County?
many times.
All right. And is your education and training clearly indicated in your resume and CV that's been circulated to the board tonight?
Yes, sir.
All right. And did you conduct a...
If I could interrupt real quick.
Yes, sir.
You have on multiple occasions referred to Mr. Craddock's testimony relative to economic impact. The item that he's going to speak to is on will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area in which. So we're well aware of Stephen's capabilities, et cetera, but it's not an economic impact to the best of my knowledge. So I would encourage you to maybe point it back to real estate and property values.
Mr. Craddock, have you conducted appraisals as to real estate property values in Currituck County?
I have.
All right. Have you conducted an investigation as it relates to this particular property before the board tonight?
I have.
All right. And as such, have you also investigated the property surrounding and such?
I have.
And have you looked into other businesses or similar types of construction on other pieces of property and whether those have affected, injured, or otherwise impacted the value of adjoining and abutting lands?
I have.
All right. And have you reviewed whether or not this would be in conformity and harmony with the area in which it's located?
I have.
All right. And for the board, I would ask to tender Mr. Craddock as an expert in the area of, or in the, for the purposes of determining whether the use permit would injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. All right. And Mr. Craddock, I'll turn it over to you to explain to the board what you determined as far as your investigation and your report is concerned.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Just to clarify, we did not do an economic impact study. But I will tell you exactly what we did do. As you all know, I'm a real estate appraiser here in Currituck County, and over my 20-year career, I have performed over 6,000 appraisals on property here in the 11-county Albemarle area. I've testified in court numerous times and also testified before you all. And matter of fact, I have worked along for the county in a couple of occasions as well. Now to the matter at hand in regards to North Carolina Beach Buggy LLC. I was contacted by Attorney Kohler here, who's the attorney representing the applicant here today, to examine all the evidence that has been presented and provided to the county planning department, and to perform my own independent research and to determine if the proposed use would have any provable negative effect on adjoining or abutting lands, and if it will be in harmony with the area in which it is located, and also to testify here today as to my findings. What we did do was I have reviewed all the information that's been provided, including the application, aerial maps, the design drawings, and all the other relevant documentation known to me to exist for this case. I have performed independent market research, including a thorough review of the market conditions that have previously occurred and that are occurring now near some of the auto sales and rental uses within our county. I performed on-site inspections of the subject property on August 5th and August 12th, 2022, as well as the surrounding properties nearby. The subject property is Zone GB, and all of the properties within 4,000 feet of the subject property are either Zone GB, General Business, or AG, Agricultural. I also met one of the business owners, Brandon Reed, who you spoke with just a moment ago, on site, where he explained his proposed use of the property and showed me some of the vehicles that he would be selling there. The vehicles I was shown were not golf carts and appear to be a safer, more rugged version and perhaps more desirable low-speed electric vehicle alternative. After visiting the subject property, I also performed a drive-by inspection of some of the immediate neighborhoods that has mainly agricultural, commercial, and residential properties. As a matter of fact, the commercial activity of Dennis Anderson's Gravedigger property is approximately 2,500 feet north of the subject property, and Currituck self-storage and an office complex is approximately 800 feet south of this subject property, all of which are on the same side of Currituck Highway. The nearest known auto sales or rental use location is approximately 2.5 miles south of the subject in Grandy on the opposite side of Currituck Highway near Station 5 Fire and EMS Station. There are also other vehicle sales locations in Grandy, which is the closest, more populated area nearby. Further analyzation of these auto sales and rental use properties, which are scattered throughout the county mainland, with the majority of in the Moyock Township, show that existing individual properties and subdivision properties are selling near them, and new subdivisions have been or are being created near them. This further solidifies our position that the existence of an auto sales and rental use does not appear to prove there will be a negative effect on nearby property values. They appear to be in harmony in the areas in which they are located as well. And here are some statistics about mainland home sales. According to the Albemarle Area Association of Realtors, the median sales price of 568 homes that sold over the last year in Currituck County, Mainland, is $414,175, and they sold within a median time of 66 days. To date, over the last 3 years, the median home price on the Currituck County mainland has increased by 39.97%. This shows continued desirability and positive growth in the residential sales market. Moyock obviously leads the area in growth on the mainland as well as in higher median sales prices. I see this positive trend continuing at least through to the end of this year. Here's some commercial sales statistics. According to the same entity, there were 27 commercial properties sold over the last 5 years on the Currituck County mainland. The 27 properties' sales price ranged from $58,500 to $1.856 million. They sold within a median time of 170 days cumulatively. And to date, over the last 3 years, the median commercial property price on Currituck County mainland has increased gently by a slower percent than the residential properties, and this is normal. This also shows continued desirability and positive growth in the commercial sales market, and I see this trend continuing on. There are other existing auto sales operations somewhat close to the proposed NC Beach Buggy LLC operation that do not appear to be causing a provable negative effect to any of the surrounding properties, whether they are commercial or residential. I physically inspected from the street the nearby auto sales locations. Within the last 5 years, there have been sales and development near these existing operations that were similar in price to other similar properties that were offered for sale farther away from these sales operations. This is proof that the existence of these sales or rental locations appear to not have had a proven negative effect on the surrounding property's values or their ability to sell within a reasonable exposure time, and they appear to be in harmony in the areas in which they are located. When it comes to potential traffic impacts.
Mr. Craddock,
Yes.
let me just interject really quick. Let me ask our county attorney, regarding your comments on traffic impacts, are you an expert on traffic law or traffic?
No, sir.
Okay, so do we have to?
You do not have to consider that evidence about traffic
Okay.
impacts.
So
Anything about he was tendered as an expert in that point 2, anything else you don't need to consider.
Okay, so I just
can
wanted to
omit that
caution
part
that
for you.
just because if you're not an expert in the traffic side of it, there we can't.
No problem. I don't mind omitting that for you.
Okay.
Conformity with our local land use plan. I further examined the 2006 land use plan, and I understand that the county planning staff has concluded that the proposed subject property is in conformity with this land use plan, and I concur. There's no known small area plan for the Poplar, Branch, or Grandy areas, or it would have been examined in depth as well. On the mainland, only Moyock and the Maple Barco areas have small area plans that have been developed. Previously as stated in the staff analysis on packet page 7, a major site plan was previously approved for a new building which is yet to be constructed. it appears that the applicant's change mainly is from golf cart sales to low-speed vehicle sales. Benefits for the county and the community. Currently, the county is receiving taxes from the vacant land. Once constructed, the county will receive taxes from the real estate, the building and the land, and also taxes from the sales and use taxes that will be charged to consumers when they buy vehicles. Our county needs more businesses to locate here, as this will help to diversify our tax base, and these new businesses will create employment opportunities for individuals in our community. And in conclusion, for all these reasons, it is my professional and expert opinion, which is based on the total amount of evidence that has been presented and from the market research I personally performed, that the proposed NC Beach Buggy LLC's auto sales and rental use will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area in which it's located, and it is in conformity with our local land use plan. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions from the board from Mr. Craddock? Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Craddock.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, as it were, we would rest our application unless there are any other questions the board may have.
I do have one
Yes,
question. Addressing the traffic impact at this location, has there been any study of the volume of traffic for this facility going in and out and what that could create? Do you need a turning lane, or is there any concerns with the highway that flows through there at a high speed?
Your Honor, I would ask my client to come up. He may be able to better address that. I know there's not been a study specifically conducted. He can probably comment as to the amount of traffic that his business draws. May help the board.
I'm not sure.
Again, I think that would require expert testimony.
Traffic, we need to.
Can I ask a question on that? I know, like what she said, would require expert test. Could we ask his your intended hours of operation, where we would know the effect of traffic? I mean, obviously, if he's open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, I'm just.
Yeah, you can certainly ask that question.
Our plan is to be open most days of the week from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Our facility's not very big. We're not putting on concerts or anything that's going to have a massive, we might have one person stop by every couple of hours, if we're so lucky, up to date, right now we might have a couple people stop in per week, that's it. So.
Did you say, did you say you had 4 parking spots that were including a handicap spot?
Correct. So
okay.
We're not anticipating massive flows of traffic into our facility.
And no concerts?
No concerts.
Okay.
Doesn't he already have a special use permit for golf carts?
For golf cart sales, yes.
How much more traffic do you think this will generate over that?
Not much more.
So why are we talking about it?
Because I know it's kind of close to my business, and I know what kind of traffic I get in my business there. All right, any other questions from the board at this time? Okay. That was all your testimony, is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
All right, at this time, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing portion for PB 2210, Beach Buggy LLC. I had one person signed up, Stephen Craddock. I believe you gave testimony though earlier. Okay, is there anyone who is here that didn't sign up for the public hearing that was wish to comment at this time regarding this, if you were sworn in? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this. And ask the board if they have any further comments or ask the board for action. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'll move to approve BB 2210 NC Beach Buggy LLC preliminary plat special use permit because the applicant has demonstrated the proposed use meets the review standards of the UDO. The TRC The TRC review comments provided in the staff report shall become conditions of the approval. The special use, the use will not endanger the public health or safety. There's not going to be any hazardous material stored at this site, and there will be a fire hydrant installed at this site to provide further protection. The use will not injure the value of the adjoining or abutting land and will be in harmony with the area in which it is located, based on the testimony of Stephen Craddock and Exhibit A, with excluding the comments regarding the traffic impacts on page 4. The use will be in conformity with the land use plan and other official adopted plans, the 2016 land use plan policies ED1 and ED4, and the use will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. As stated, there will be no impact to our school systems. And that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, at this time, before we go into our next, we'll go ahead and take a quick 5-minute recess before we go into our next item. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and reconvene our meeting tonight, and the next item, let me find it here, right in front of me. What did I do with it? Well, it got buried in the paperwork.
PB.
Yeah. Okay, just give me that one real quick. I don't have the paperwork now.
It takes a village.
Yeah, PB, okay. PB 2121, Algonquin Subdivision, request for a preliminary plat and special use permit for a 10-lot traditional subdivision located on Indian Kennel Road, Jarvisburg, tax map 109, parcel 53F, Poplar Branch Township. This is another quasi-judicial, so anyone who wishes to speak and provide testimony tonight, please come forward to be sworn in. There should be some Bibles up there. If you could get a Bible, place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to oh, we got one. Oh, I'm sorry, did not see y'all. My apologies. Didn't see it working up here. Up, there it is. I found it now. All right, we got everybody? All right, do you swear the testimony you provide tonight will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thanks, everyone. Okay. All right, I believe our director, Kevin Kemp, will be leading us again.
All right, thank you, Chairman. As you mentioned, this is an application for a 10-lot Type 1 traditional subdivision on about 15.5 acres of land. I just want to note that, remind you, a Type 1 subdivision is one of 20 lots or less. Typically, these don't come before you, but because of the adequate public facilities, Jarvisburg Elementary is over 85% at capacity. So a special use permit is required, and it's before you this evening. This site is located off Forbes Road, directly west of Jarvisburg Elementary. When you zoom in a little bit, you can see that the proposed subdivision is actually an extension of Indian Kettle Road. There are 4 lots on Indian Kettle right now, 3 of which are developed with single-family homes. The site is zoned single-family mainland. It was rezoned, I believe, in 2008 from agriculture. It is a limited service district, same as the last application. And just for good measure, threw in the Imagine Currituck, where it is G1 low density. That is the equivalent to limited service. Here is the site plan showing the 10 lots, but this image will give you a better idea. It shows the 10 lots outlined in red. The lots range from 40,000 to 43,064 square feet. The overall density of the project is 0.68 units per acre. You can see one Odd lot. There is an existing cemetery behind Lot 2, which is why Lot 2 jots in the way it does. The mailbox cluster will be, it's not shown on the plan, but it will be in between Lots 3 and 4. Did want to draw your attention to this property line adjacent to the house on the south. The current property line runs right where your mouse is, right across that driveway. This property line will be reconfigured to where you see it in green, and there is a condition that this will be done prior to the construction drawing phase. There is 194,528 square feet of open space. Included in that is a 34,070 square foot BMP. Here you see a detail of it. The stormwater is accessed via a 20-foot access easement off the cul-de-sac. I also want to bring your attention to the fact that there is a buffer strip, vegetated buffer between the properties and that house located to the south. The image on the right there shows a typical lot in this subdivision. As I said, typical lot's about 40,000 square feet. There is a septic field which is located in the rear of the lot. The dwellings will maintain a 25-foot setback. There is also a 10-foot easement in the front where street trees will be planted. They will be planted 10 feet on center. Additionally, there are utility and drainage easements that run up each side and the rear of the properties. Here is a summary of all the infrastructure. It is on public water. As I mentioned, it's on-site septic. There are sidewalks on both sides of the proposed development, but I will get a little more on that on the next slide. Stormwater, there are vegetated swales that will convey the runoff into the BMP, and then there is an outfall, which I didn't mention. There's an outfall right here into Forbes Ditch, which is ultimately where the water will end up. There is no street lighting proposed. There is a payment in the lieu of dedication for parkland and sidewalks. Here you see two street sections. The top street section is the typical street section for the newly developed part of the property. This has sidewalks on both sides. The lower street section shows a sidewalk only on one side, and that is because staff is recommending that a sidewalk be installed on the eastern part of existing Indian Kettle Road. Now, Indian Kettle Road is just gravel right now. It will be improved to NCDOT standards. Staff feels that that sidewalk is important as a connector from the new development to Forbes Road, particularly because it's next to a elementary school. And in the Currituck plan, it's designated as a quiet street, which will have some, it might not be a sidewalk, but it will have some kind of pedestrian lane on the street at some point. So we feel it's important to get that connection now. Lastly, we see the schools. The kids from this development would go to Jarvisburg Elementary, Currituck Middle, and then Currituck Higher JP Knapp. All do have capacity. As I mentioned, Jarvisburg is over the 85% threshold, but there is capacity remaining in those schools. So with that, I will leave up the 4 review standards to consider for this application and stand by for any questions.
Mr. Kennel.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, it's okay. Could you back up to the sidewalk?
Yes, sir.
So they're only having, okay, so you're going to have sidewalks on each side of the road on the new
Correct.
proposed subdivision, just single on the existing.
That's what staff recommends, yes.
All right. Just want to make sure I had that clear.
Will there be a designated pedestrian crosswalk between the where the sidewalk ends to go to the other side?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yes. And this is something that staff has worked with the applicant through the process on, and I'm sure the applicant will be able to fill in on that as well.
The schools piece there, as you showed earlier, that chart. So you're saying that this project would only have one student projected? Is that what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. One to Jarvisburg Elementary, and then
Well, yeah, one for the
One for the
elementary
high school.
school, yeah. Okay. Okay.
acre, 40,000 square foot is the smallest, correct?
Yes, sir. Lots, all are 40,000 square feet except lots 4 and 5, which are slightly larger.
And it's what, 4 acres of open space or something, I believe?
Yeah, 194,000 square feet. Whatever that comes out to, I think it's about 4.5 acres.
The last thing was that obviously they'd all be on septic, correct?
Yes, just as shown on that typical site plan there on the right, they will all have septic. Septic will be in the rear of the property.
Okay, any other questions for Kevin Kemp at this time? None? Okay, thank you, Mr. Kemp, and I'll ask the applicant to come forward, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman
Good evening.
Payment, Board of Commissioners, Mr. McCree, Ms. Morgan. Congratulations on your new appointment. I'm Ben Gallup, and I'm an attorney from Nags Head. I'm here representing Joel and Stacy Justice, who own the property that this subdivision is being platted upon. Mr. and Ms. Justice are in the second row there. Mr. Justice raising his hand. And I'm here with Mark Bissell, who is the engineer on the project. He'll testify to what the project's going to be about and to a couple of the different standards that you have for your special use permits. And Kim Tate, Currituck appraiser, is here to discuss compatibility and lack of effective value on adjoining properties. My goal is to speak as little as possible, so I'm going to step aside and I'm going to call Mr. Bissell forward and let him give his presentation. And if any of y'all have any questions, feel free to ask him. Thank you.
Okay, real quick,
Yes, sir.
I guess you'll be qualifying your expert witnesses?
I can if you require me to. If nobody's going to object to them, I don't know that we need to qualify them, but I'm glad to go through the rigmarole and jump through the hoops if you want me to.
Should we, since it's being a recorded session?
I mean, that's up to y'all. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Go ahead, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For the record.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bissell, can you state your name and occupation for the record, please?
Mark Bissell, I'm a civil engineer.
How long have you been a civil engineer, Mr. Bissell?
I have been registered in the state for about 40 years now.
Where have you practiced during that 40 years?
Well, since 1984, I've actually practiced in Currituck County.
Okay. And you've been before this board before?
Many times.
Have they approved subdivision and zoning, permitting, things that you've been in front of them for?
They have.
And you've been asked to provide engineering services on this project, is that correct?
I have.
And have you prepared the documentation that has been provided as part of the record tonight
I've
for that?
prepared it, or it's been prepared under my supervision.
Okay. And does it include the bases and analysis and assumptions and opinions that you got for this board to consider in the subdivision preliminary process?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And are you prepared to give those opinions tonight via testimony?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that Mr. Bissell be qualified as an engineer to discuss the various standards, except for the appraisal-related standards that are before you tonight, and to discuss the project.
Any objection from the board? No. Hearing no objections, okay, thank you, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Proceed, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So as Mr. Kemp indicated, the request involves a little under 15 and a half acres on Indian Kettle Road. This property was rezoned to SFM in 2008, so it was envisioned that this would be used to develop a residential use at some point, and that point is hopefully now. And we are requesting a preliminary plat and special use permit for 10 single-family lots. This shows you the overall development plan. You see in the light green color are the 10 lots that are being proposed. You see to the left, unshaded, are the 4 existing lots that are all about 40,000 square feet as well. There's an existing gravel road. Does this cursor work on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. It's So you see right here, there's an existing gravel road that serves those 4 existing lots, and there was a temporary gravel cul-de-sac that was constructed here with the intent of one day continuing that road. At this point, we're proposing to construct the remaining road, and actually the existing road as well, to NCDOT standards. So there would be a 20-foot asphalt road extending from Forbes Road to and including this cul-de-sac. The drainage is to the rear. We are proposing a stormwater VMP in this location with an outfall to the Forbes ditch here, and this part of the Forbes ditch that runs through this property will also be cleaned out in consultation with the stormwater manager for the county.
Mr. Bissell, where does the water go from there?
It goes off of the
Back.
property.
Okay.
There is
That's all.
There's a drainage slough back here to the west, to the east.
I just wasn't sure if it was draining to 158. Or, I'm sorry, forward to the west.
So the 4 existing lots actually have a swale that generally appears to drain toward Forbes Road. The plan is going to be to connect it up here so that water actually in a major storm event could also provide overflow to the west and be served by this BMP, which will be sized to be able to do that.
And how much water is the BMP designed to handle?
Well, it hasn't technically been designed and
Okay.
modeled yet, but it'll meet or exceed the county's pre and post development runoff standard.
But is it the 10-year, not the 100-year?
10-year, 2-year, right. But we really don't have any downstream drainage concerns that we're aware of that would require.
What's the
property
estimated
to
size?
Retain more than that.
What's the estimated size of the BMP?
It is a little under an acre in size. And this is 40,000 feet. The BMP looks like it's maybe just slightly less than that. So as far as utilities and infrastructure from a public health standpoint, the lots will be served by public water supply. Currituck County has issued a water commitment for these lots. As I indicated, the roads will be built to NCDOT standards, and the existing roadway will also be upgraded to that standard. We'll be improving the existing drainage by constructing this BMP and also improving the outlet ditch. We have had all the lots evaluated by Albemarle Regional Health Services, and they have approved all 10 of the lots. From a land use plan consistency standpoint, this is consistent with both the 2006 land use plan, which suggested low-density residential at 1 to 1.5 units per acre. It's also consistent with Imagine Currituck, the new plan that you all just adopted, which recommends density at 1 unit per acre. Their actual density is 64 hundredths of a unit per acre. It's compatible with the existing development in terms of lot size and design. And it is also consistent with the UDO, and based on the couple of TRC reviews that we have had, it meets all the requirements of the Currituck Unified Development Ordinance. It also meets several specific land use plan policies, or is consistent with those policies, including policy HN1 regarding the density occurring at densities appropriate, or development occurring at densities appropriate for the location, which I've already outlined. Policy TR12 that new residential developments shall provide for the installation of paved public roadways and drainage infrastructure. And we're not only providing that, but we're also improving the existing roadway and drainage. Policy WS6, Currituck endorses the proper use and maintenance of approved septic systems, and as I said, the RHS has approved each of those 10 lots for conventional septic systems. Policy PR6 regarding open space, and over 30% of open space is being provided. Because of the small amount of required recreation and parkland dedication, a fee in lieu of that dedication is being provided. Policy WQ3 and WQ4 regarding soil erosion and sedimentation, runoff and drainage, and post-development runoff not exceeding pre-development volumes, and that's the 10-year, and that's not exceeding the 2-year wooded condition pre-development runoff. And so stormwater management and erosion control are both being provided in accordance with the Currituck Stormwater Manual and the UDO. And then by cleaning out the Forbes ditch, we're improving drainage to some upstream offsite properties as well. We're providing some wooded buffers. You see, we're providing street trees here. We're providing a wooded buffer here. There's an existing tree area here that is being retained, and then everything you see in this kind of chartreuse color is a wooded area that is also going to be left wooded. So we don't anticipate any adverse impacts. Again, we're adding a BMP, adding roadway swales, improving the existing roadway. And then, as staff has indicated in the staff report, capacity is available to serve the limited number of students that will be generated by this development. Now, one thing has come up tonight that has been raised as a concern that we were unaware of, which has to do with a concern that several of the neighbors have raised. And if we could go back to that slide where you were showing those existing and proposed cross sections of roadways, I'd like to kind of address that. When we did the initial design, it was our opinion that sidewalks wouldn't be required in front of the existing lots. During the TRC review, the planning staff determined that sidewalks are needed in front of the existing lots, and we reached a compromise position, as you see in that in this cross section here, to put sidewalks or put a sidewalk on one side of the street in front of those existing lots, which is the side that the school is located on, which makes sense. What you see here, the road, the existing roadway, the existing right-of-way is a 45-foot right-of-way. The travel surface, I believe, is less than 20 feet now. It's just gravel, and then it has kind of minimal shoulder and then roadway swales. DOT has indicated that they will take this road into the state system for maintenance once it's been paved to their standards. They've also agreed that a 45-foot right-of-way is adequate for the rest of the road. Now, what happens here, though, when you put a sidewalk, now let me back up. So there's a 45-foot right-of-way. There's also an existing 15-foot drainage easement on either side of the road, drainage and utility easement. And we'll be running a new water line along this road, and that water line will actually go within the shoulder area in between the existing. Sorry?
All right, that didn't come
Almost
from
behind you.
us. That didn't come from us. Keep going.
So what happens though when we put the sidewalk, and this is on the east side of the road, it pushes the drainage swale out beyond the right of way into that drainage easement. Now, the water line will be within the right of way, but a portion of the drainage will be out into the easement, and the way we have figured it, we'll probably use about half of that 15-foot easement to do a standard NCDOT roadway section. On the other side of the road, the west side, there's no sidewalk being proposed, and what we are showing here is a wider shoulder section and then a swale in about that same location to kind of mirror the other side. But based on the concerns that we heard earlier this evening, we can move the swale over closer to the road. DOT is going to want a 5-foot shoulder section here before we start the swale, but we have figured that all but the last couple of feet of that swale can actually be located within the existing 45-foot right-of-way. I know there's a concern about that swale moving farther onto those lots.
So is that what you're proposing to do?
So we're proposing to actually modify this section to put the swale as close to the road as DOT will allow to, which is with a 5-foot
May
shoulder
I ask a
section.
question? I'm just curious. Why was the sidewalk placed on the east side if the water line is there? Would it not make more sense to put the sidewalk on the west side so as not to encroach upon the existing property as much?
Well, actually, the sidewalk is being proposed on the east side, and because that's the side that the school is on.
But there are no sidewalks from this subdivision to the school, so
That's true.
I don't see how that's a benefit.
And the water line is proposed on the west side.
Okay, because I thought with the way I'm looking at it up on the middle graphic there, it looks like the water line is between the road, the one below that. It looks like the water line is between the road and the sidewalk.
Well, the sidewalk is here,
Uh-huh.
and the water line is
Oh,
here.
I thought earlier you pointed
You pointed out
between
the
the
other
sides.
way while before you pointed
I'm
to
sorry.
the
My mistake.
Okay.
You want to borrow my glasses, Mark?
I mean, like I said, if the homeowner, I believe, he's probably in there, he may speak, or he or she, if I own that one lot, I have irrigation or something, just say, shoot, and, like she said, the sidewalk, was that something the landowner wanted to do, or is that something the staff wanted to do? Because like, if I own a property, and, the sidewalk, I would say, if
Mike.
it's not connected to anything to the school, I
Mike.
get it, if it was.
Mike.
Oh, Mike, sorry. I'm loud. I thought. But yeah, my question was mainly is whoever owns the home on the road, Indian Kettle Road up top, by the one vacant lot, as well as the landowner beside it. The sidewalks, was that a county staff thing, or was that something that the developer wanted to do? Because I just don't see it gelling if it doesn't connect.
That sidewalk is what I think I'm agreeing
I'm
with
agreeing.
Commissioner McCord. There's no benefit for that sidewalk.
Well, I think county staff is what is added.
Oh,
We can-
okay.
We can
Well,
let Kevin address that.
It is in the
Ordinance that it requires that walk.
Sidewalk,
I
no.
understand that, but to me, if it's dead ending at Forbes Road, I just don't see the point. Okay.
I believe Kevin's said when he was up that it's about future use, that Forbes Road has intended to, part of the Connecting Currituck plan, to have
Okay.
pedestrian pathways through there in the next 100 years
Have a
or
little
so.
crossover with a little elevator that takes you to the school.
Okay.
Ride the bikes, I guess.
Sorry, I stand corrected.
So the plans as we're currently showing them do have this sidewalk here on the east side and does have a crosswalk then connecting across here at this point. and sidewalks on both sides of the new road.
So, Mark, through all this, are you saying are you able to put the sidewalk in on the east side and be able to do the ditch? Is that going to be a problem, or is it doable for you guys?
Well, it's doable, and it'll be done within the existing drainage and utility easement.
Okay.
But I think there's a concern about whether it will disrupt some landscape improvements and those kinds of things that are across the front of the blocks.
Okay.
But what we can do is talk with NCDOT to see if they will allow that sidewalk to go closer to the road than we're showing it to minimize that. Generally they want it to be at least 4 or 5 feet away from the edge of pavement for safety.
So is there any, I understand that it's in the easement area. Is there any plan to work with the existing homeowners to remedy the landscaping and the things that they've grown accustomed to? I don't know what year those homes were built, but is there any remedy for them?
Well, the developer has had discussions with the homeowners in the past and indicated that there's a willingness to repair or replace any improvements that are destroyed as part of the roadway improvements.
Would there be an objection to making that a condition? Do we do conditions here?
I believe we can.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we could do conditions.
Okay.
So we can add that later on, Selena, and see if they'll.
All right.
For the microphone, Mr. Justice, the applicant did say he did not have an objection to that condition.
And as I said, we can move the drainage swale on the other side so that it has a fairly minimal impact. Outside, just the last couple of feet or so would be outside of the 45-foot right-of-way into that drainage easement.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask if is the sidewalk a deal breaker? I mean, like I said, if it's hooked to nothing, I get, the down the road, but if it's hooked to nothing, does the sidewalk, does it have to be in? Is the developer against?
Maybe I can add.
That's fine.
This is something that the county required you to do.
Right. The developer doesn't really.
Okay, if we do with the other one, then why do the other two in the neighborhood that's required?
So it would make.
You got to have something coming to Ford's Road.
Yeah, I understand that, but like I said, it just aesthetically, you have a sidewalk on the other.
We got the same thing with Foss.
Actually, I stand
Yeah,
corrected.
that
The
is true.
developer would prefer not to have the
consistent,
sidewalk.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, most definitely, because the concrete's not cheap. I don't blame them.
So yeah, I think that's the whole goal is to, if you're going to do a development, bring it to Forbes so you can get that connectivity on. We're being consistent with.
It's just like I said, it's a different animal, kind of like Commissioner Jarvis said.
But, we just got to, do we pick and choose or? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, sir.
No, I think that's-
Continue on unless you were
That's
complete.
the end of my presentation, unless you all have some questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Jump in.
the DOT had made a comment about the cluster box layout. Did that get changed? I know it was right at the edge of the cul-de-sac. It was pointed out by Kevin.
Yeah, it was moved to a location that everybody.
So they're happy with it right at the start of the cul-de-sac now, I guess? I didn't catch the comments back. Okay, thank you.
It meets their standard criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Can you point out where the cluster box is? Can you point out that? The top? Okay, I see it. Never mind, I see it now.
It's right here, between lots 3 and 4. Previously, it was going to be actually outside the right-of-way in this location. They were concerned that would require people to back into the cul-de-sac.
Got it.
Mr. Bill, just some regarding the existing cemetery there. There is access to it, correct?
There is. This is this black.
Okay, that's the easement. Okay,
Easement.
and it's going to be fenced or it's marked and it's going to be. Is it marked now or is it fenced in or anything or is it just
Any kind of buffer?
Yeah, is there anything around it at all or is it just
I can't answer that.
Are you, oh, okay, well, that's fine. I didn't know if you knew, okay. Didn't know if you knew that or not.
It
Okay.
doesn't look like much according to Google Maps,
Okay.
depending on how old this
Well, I
picture
just
is.
I thought maybe you walked the site and did all that.
There's some trees around it.
I've driven back
Okay.
and forth down that road, but it's got a nice line of
Okay.
cypress trees
Okay.
on both sides.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for Mr. Bissell from the board? If not, thank you, Mr. Bissell.
If you'd like to have the cemetery question answered, I can ask Mr. Justice to come, Mr. Justice to come forward and answer
And we
that.
can't hear, would you continue on how you wanted to proceed there?
I'm going to let Mr. Tate go first, and then we'll have you come up. Tate.
Okay.
Can you state your name and occupation for the record, please?
Kim Tate, real estate appraiser.
How long have you been a real estate appraiser?
Approximately 40 years.
Where do you primarily practice real estate appraising?
Carrying license in Virginia, North Carolina, but I focus on northeastern North Carolina.
Have you performed appraisals in Currituck County?
Yes.
How long have you been doing that?
About 25 years.
Okay. Have you provided appraisals before this board?
I have.
For zoning or subdivision type hearings like this?
Subdivision impact, similar to those.
Have you provided appraisals for court processes and other expert witness venues?
Yes, I have.
Have you been asked to provide an opinion in this case?
Yes, I have.
What was that opinion about?
It was to analyze the proposed development and whether it would have negative impact, positive impact, be consistent in use with the surrounding uses, and prove that.
Have you developed such an opinion?
I have.
Are you prepared to provide that this evening?
Yes.
Have you prepared a report as well?
Yes.
Does your report contain your bases, assumptions, analysis, and conclusions on your opinion?
Yes, it does.
Can I have, you have copies of the report?
I do.
I'd ask for Mr. Tate to be qualified as an expert witness to provide testimony about whether or not the values will affect the adjoining or the development will affect the values of adjoining properties and the compatibility with the area where the preliminary plat is located, and that the report be admitted into evidence.
Any objections from the board? Okay, the witness is acceptable. Please proceed. Yes, please, bring it forward.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Tate, if you could provide the board with the efforts of your work and your analysis and opinions, please.
I will. Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, to share my findings with you. I was approached by Mr. Gallup concerning the development Mr. and Ms. Justice are getting ready to do. I'm very familiar with this subdivision. I've actually done some appraisals on the areas in the front when it was first developed many years ago. I had an opportunity to go out and take a look at the site back on the 6th of August and then again on the 8th of August. The most appropriate way to go at figuring out if something is going to have a negative impact is to analyze other activity in the market to see other subdivisions that have been developed and see if the properties around them have been impacted negatively, positively, no impact. The best way to measure that is to look at sales analysis, match pairs analysis. We looked around the county. There's not a whole lot of development going on currently in the southern portion of the county, so we had to look at the whole county as a whole to review impacts of subdivisions going in next to adjacent existing housing, which we did. We found 10 different sales, which are within your report there. Most of them tend to be focused up towards Moyoc because that's where all the development is right now. There's a lot of development up there. There's a lot of existing properties that this development is going in and around. What we did is we took the sales that had occurred more recently and compared them to sales that had occurred in the past with these same properties, looked at them, their rates of appreciation, how they had appreciated over the years, and compared that to properties overall, the average of Currituck County. Currituck County has seen a whole lot of growth, as was brought up earlier, over the past 5 to 10 years. A lot of that has occurred since 2019, particularly in 20 and 21, with COVID and people making a mass exodus from other places, coming into Currituck, looking for places to live. So we had an abundance of activity to look at. During this time frame and prior to this time frame, there were a lot of subdivisions that were going in Moyock around existing properties that we could take a look at. If you'll look through your binder, there was a number of sales that we've looked at to compare appreciation rates of what these properties sold for and their appreciation on a straight line basis. And we took each of these sales, rode past them, took a look at them, actually contacted people that were involved in the more recent portion of that sale just to make sure that they didn't add a pool, didn't add a garage, didn't do something different to the house to skew that analysis one way or the other. We found our general findings was that the average increase in values from 2017 through 2022 ranged from 6.2 to 15.7% overall for the average house in Currituck. If you look at those same sales that we use, the 10 sales that we use, they will show you that the same rates of appreciation, 1.1% to 13.7%, based on simple 12-month averaging, had essentially the same increase in appreciation. We've got to keep in mind, too, though, that the jump in appreciation in the past couple years has been tremendous based on the factors, market conditions that were in effect at the time. Historically low interest rates, a limited inventory of houses, a pent-up buyer demand, and the other thing that's had an impact on that is supply chain issues that have run up the cost of building and labor. We looked at the sales. A lot of these had subdivisions that were much larger than the one that's being proposed. A lot of them were backing up to Water League. The Gables, which went on for a period of time, Gables kind of started off and then ended up stalling for a bit of time and then came back around and is pretty much developed out now. Two of these subdivisions were very similar sales, 106 Dustin Lane, and then there was another one at 101 Dustin Lane. They were both in the Muddy Acres subdivision, which had the development of Muddy Acres abutted that to one side and Velvet Acres to the other side, and those were both smaller subdivisions, more on the scale of this. And both of these sales showed the same rate of appreciation, the same rate of growth that mirrored the average appreciation rate and growth. It's my opinion, based on looking at this, that a well-done subdivision like this would not have a negative impact on adjacent properties. It would be in harmony. The other thing to take into consideration is that currently Indian Kettle Road is a unpaved road, private unpaved road. This will create a paved road, and it's going to have a managed stormwater system that will hopefully pull the water back to that BMP, pull it away from there. The road built to state standards will enhance the marketability of the existing homes because in many instances lenders are reluctant or have policies against lending on properties that are on unpaved private roads for concerns of longevity of their collateral, not having the ability to have emergency vehicles in and out. So that it's my feeling overall that the analysis shows that you will see no impact or most likely a positive impact from the development of this subdivision.
I'm just curious, because, you know, I live down in the Poplar Branch area, that, I mean, there's a lot of development in the Poplar Branch area, down the Poplar Branch Road and Island area, land development and houses going up. You didn't even look into any of that, or did you?
I actually looked down around Islet. The whole point is you've got to find some sales that occurred here in previous or during the development period and then afterwards, so that you can measure that it was impacted. It's got to have impact through it. The sales
The
that
only thing you could
occurred.
find was Moyac area like that? Wow.
Excuse me?
Okay. No, I was just saying, Moyac was the only one that had that activity, huh? Okay.
Well, just because there's a lot of activity up there to take a look at. And granted, the averages tend to be skewed by extreme highs and extreme lows, but I think as you look, you will start seeing properties down around Narrow Shores and Idle Road where development is going in. Now, there have been resales in the Narrow Shore subdivision right there that Landmark did, resales of those homes that have increased within a year or two while development was going on, but they knew that development was going on there, and it was kind of hard to separate that from just a market condition versus somebody coming in and going, there's nothing going on here, I bought a house, now there's something going on, I got to sell it at a loss because I've got a problem with what's going on around me.
Board have any other questions at this time? If not, thank you, sir. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll call Mr. Justice from just a moment.
Joel Justice.
The chairman asked, I believe it was
the chairman
yes.
that
Asked whether or not the cemetery was
marked to
fenced
just
off or marked.
The cemetery has approximately 50% of the perimeter around it are eastern red cedars that my wife and I planted 25 years ago, and they're about 40 foot high, and they're probably 20 feet plus wide. There is a small section in the very back or the west of the cemetery. Can you see the cursor?
Yes, sir.
In this section here that is still open, there's nothing planted. And I would plant probably a series of Russian olives there and let them take over, because they'll get 20 feet high, as thick as the eastern red cedars.
We make that a condition that you will screen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And further, on this north side right here, and a portion of the west, on that northwest corner, there was a hedge there. It's probably 150 to 200 years old. And my wife and I, when we bought the property, we don't own, as far as we're concerned, the cemetery. We consider it hallowed ground. But it was overgrown to 20 to 25 foot with briars, and you could barely tell there was a cemetery there. And it took us about 8 or 10 years working consistently, usually during the winter when the chiggers and everything weren't out there, to clear it. And now it's mowed weekly. It's been mowed for many years. David Locklear, my friend here, has helped and mowed it many times too, and I would continue, as far as I'm there, just as a matter of personal pride, to mow it. I'm also going to be sending a letter asking the other homeowners if they could help me to maintain the cemetery to perpetuity, because it's part of our neighborhood, and we're all proud to have it. I've spent some time attempting to restore some of the stones in the cemetery. To no great effect. It's a very difficult thing. But we're proud of the cemetery, and it's accessed off our permanent access easement to get to our home. It's about 1,500 foot from Forbes Road here all the way to our property, which is here, our home. And so we maintain that. We planted 500 eastern red cedar trees on either side of our lane. And one of the reasons was to beautify the school property is over on this side. And so we had a special request from the commissioners 25 years ago that if we planted those trees, would they give us 20-foot easement to plant them, to beautify. And we did, and we've been good partners with the school. We maintain the trees, we maintain that lane and the cemetery. And may I comment a little further in regards to the project as a whole? My wife and I planted from this point here all the way over and all the way down to this section, again, 500 eastern red cedar trees. And they all came in one 4x4 box from the North Carolina Forestry Service, and they were bare root. They were about so tall. And so for years, we planted them, Miracle-Gro, different fertilizer. We mulched them and watered them for years with the water cannon in the hot summer so they would grow, and they've done beautifully. Because when we purchased our property about 25 years ago, this entire section, our idea was to build a beautiful home here and then to begin to develop and plant trees and beautify the property for potential subdivision. And so we've worked for 25 years, and we have paid off that property. We have worked tirelessly to maintain the trees. We had recently, this area in here is what we call the tree graveyard. And every time I would come across trees or for sale or whatever, we would grab them and plant them in there. And now that's a little forest, and it's beautiful, and we're going to maintain all of this area. But from this point here to this point here, I don't know exactly how many linear foot it is. It's probably close to 1,000 linear foot. I have recently spent thousands of dollars and purchased 6-foot green giant arborvitaes and other trees and planted them, as the neighbors have seen and know. And they're doing really well. I water them on the hottest days. I'll be out there watering them and maintaining and mulching, and to beautify this, because we want a first-class, top-quality subdivision that's absolutely beautiful, that every yard in this subdivision has a beautiful, fully mature treed backyard. I have built the home here, and this home, and the home that's here. We had a beautiful home there. Unfortunately, it burnt down. And then the Locklears moved in, one of the neighbors, and built a kind of beautiful home to go with these two. And so, as a general contractor and a developer and a business owner here in Currituck County, I've done everything possible to build first-class, top-quality, nice residential homes. And I think that the neighbors here that are very upset with me right now would have to admit that their homes are very nice, and it's a beautiful area. And what they are upset about, and what I'm kind of upset about, is after 20 years of owning all this property and developing these 4 lots, which are beautiful, now we have to retool these first 4 lots to put a sidewalk in. And it's a sidewalk that goes literally to nowhere. In fact, the sidewalk, there's a ditches on Forbes Road here, and there's nowhere for a sidewalk to cross that ditch. And if it did, it would go out to Forbes Road, which is a very busy road. And the school is right here, true. However, nobody wants a sidewalk. These neighbors don't want one, and I don't want one. I've done everything in my power to appease my neighbors here. At first, with Mark Bissell, spent probably $10,000 or more to develop a 19-home subdivision on this, which Mark says would have probably gone through with all the set-aside acres that we have in the back. And I seriously considered that until I had the reaction of my neighbors who are all back here. And we've been really good friends. A lot of cookouts and just good times, and Mr. Lockley or his wife worked for me 14 years in my business as a major officer. And so we've done everything we can with that 19-lot subdivision, and they were very distraught. And so I retooled, got up with Mark Bissell after $10,000 or $12,000 already invested, and then we brought it down to a 10-lot subdivision. And that appeased them to a heavy degree. And I live here too. And I want to get along with them, and I want to do what's right. And so we made it 10-lot subdivision. And when you do a 10-lot subdivision, it's twice as long for utilities, it's twice as much road. I understand that we have to have a gutter system around the cul-de-sac itself here. And that's kind of expensive, but it's just something, if you got to do it, you got to do it. However, with the extra cost of all of the sidewalk and all of the development and moving ditches and swells that have been there for 20 years and have to retool all that, and really angering these people here, ruining our relationship, I don't want those sidewalks. Mark Bissell says it's in the UDO, and it has to be because it's in the UDO. You know, I'm asking you guys, there are very few developments in Currituck that I'm aware of, as a general contractor and as a business owner for many years here, that have sidewalks. I mean, Kilmarlock, a lot of the nicest neighborhoods out there, they have no sidewalks. And, you know, that's really almost a deal killer, because with the cost to develop with these larger lots and all, with the extra utilities and so forth, and with the roads, and I have to pay for the road in front of their homes, which is many, couple tens of thousands more on top of the sidewalks. It's very difficult. It almost makes me think maybe we shouldn't even develop in Currituck here and go somewhere else, because it's almost impossible when you add up all of these figures to have a yield great enough to be able to build and to make it affordable. And so what a risk. It's very difficult. I have worked with the school board through the beautification of our property. I've worked with Currituck County. We provide all of the mitigation services for disasters for the county, as we're signed up to do. We have great relationships in the building department. All of those people, we pulled hundreds of permits, and we're held in pretty high regard, I think, in the municipality and also in the community. But we're just getting killed on the sidewalk deal. And yes.
They had mentioned earlier, and I had answered for you after you answered, but if they made it a condition that when you redid the swales, or if the sidewalk still has to go in on the other 4 properties, that you would be glad to remedy the issues with whatever gets torn up there. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You know, I respect my neighbors. They all work just as hard as I have for their beautiful homes and their yards. It's like Martha Stewart there. Everybody is competing to have the best looking. And that's the way I would like, that's what worked for all my adult life almost, to beautify this property. And of course,
So you would accept that condition then?
of course
Okay,
I
thank
would.
you. Okay,
I don't
great.
want them to have to go through that. And if it costs me to relocate the swells, again, when you have a property for 20 years and these guys put their life savings in there, why do they have to retool for a sidewalk that goes nowhere? It's like that bridge in Alaska. They say that big bridge, $1 billion, and it goes nowhere. Those are the same people.
So you wouldn't have any issue if the commissioners told you didn't have to do the sidewalk along their properties? Is that
If we
correct?
didn't have to do the sidewalk along these guys' properties, I would jump for joy. And I would work with them and do whatever is necessary to improve their property so that we can have a road. And also that road is going to improve their equity value it's going to make it much more marketable because mortgage companies, again, they don't want to.
Again, to hold you off, I mean, I know you're starting to get into hearsay now because I don't believe you're not an appraiser or something. I mean, I know you're going on and on a lot. I mean, I guess we get the idea that you don't want the sidewalks.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's not me, but they don't want it.
Okay.
And that's fine. But the other aspect is you have a real estate appraiser that came out and testified that this property value, et cetera, and he bases that on what that layout is supposed to be in agreement with what our UDO reads, right? So if we're trying to change that, you, in essence, put his valuation at risk. So I would suggest we keep going.
Let me ask him, if I could ask Mr. Tate that question before we go too far.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's in the UDO.
Okay. Yeah.
But feel free.
Do you have any more questions for Mr.
Okay.
Mr. Justice?
All right. Proceed.
We're good, Joel.
Thank you.
Mr. Tate, if you could come back. If the sidewalks were not, if there was not a sidewalk along the existing properties along Indian Kettle, would that change your opinion?
No, it would not. I don't have enough evidence to prove that it would change my opinion.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Tate?
Yes, the lot in the northeast corner that borders on Forbes Road. There's no house there now.
That's correct.
So if you wanted to connect that sidewalk off of Indian Kettle, you'd have to take that person's property to get there, would you not, to the school?
Well, there is an existing easement across that property as well. There's that same 15-foot drainage and utility easement does run along that part of Indian Kettle Road. But there's no, but like you said, then where do you go from there?
Okay, any other questions from the board at this time? All right. Did you have some more?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any more evidence.
Okay.
I don't know. The previous presentation, I believe Mr. Kohler did his argument before the public made their testimony, but I'd prefer to wait if that's possible. But I'll do whatever you prefer for me to do.
I would suggest having him wait in case he has any rebuttal questions for public
All
comment.
right, then we'll hold off. If there's no other further questions from the board at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing portion for PB 2121 Algonquin Subdivision. I have no one signed up to speak on this matter. If you got sworn in or if you'd like to speak on this matter, please come forward and state your name and address. And just before we get started on that, I just asked the county attorney just to reemphasize we are, as we sit as a quasi judicial, what we can entertain and not as far as evidence versus hearsay.
Yes, so as Chairman Payment mentioned, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and so there are several points that they have to decide, and they can only hear expert testimony on that. So we also cannot hear any hearsay evidence, an out-of-court statement if the witness is not here.
So yeah, just wanted to, we'll be glad to listen to what you have to say, but as we make our decisions, we got to base it on, expert testimonial witnesses. But please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Alum, 102 Indian Kettle Road. I live there with my wife, Teresa. We've been there for 6 years. We love the area. We love Currituck. We appreciate everything Joel is doing right now at this moment. I have a feeling that he didn't know how that was encroaching on our property. We have just planted 6 trees on our lot, which we maintain, the swell, to the road, and we would like to keep it as it is. We've grown accustomed to that, like our neighbors to the north and to the east. Across the road, there's more mature crepe myrtles that we're afraid we'll lose. And, pretty much, we're opposed to anything changing. We don't want to change Joe and Stacy's dream or ruin that. But at the same time, our little acre lot is our dream. So we just want to keep things the way they are. We're not opposed to the hard top, but if we could get away with no sidewalks and little movement, that's what we would like. Nobody likes change, and we're just like you guys. We don't, we've been mowing that yard for 6 years, all the way out to the road, and just want it to stay, the way it is. We don't want to, keep them from experiencing their dream. But like I said, our dream's that little acre lot. So that's it.
Okay.
I want to thank you guys for listening to us.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else who got sworn in, didn't sign up? Please just state your name again for the record and your address.
Al Kwasnik, 100 Indian Kettle. I'm the first one on the cross street from the empty lot. But I agree with what Mike said, what Joel said. We don't want to interrupt his dream. We have our own little dream. I moved here a year ago, this month, from Jersey. At 50 by 100 lot, paid over $8,000 a year property taxes. Came down here, we vacationed down here for like 30 years. Finally got able to retire. Thank you, COVID. Got me out of the job early. But we finally had the opportunity to have our dream. We said for years we were going to move down to the Outer Banks, Currituck County. Don't need to be on the beach. This side is nice. Farmland. And when I saw the Plat for the new subdivision, and I saw that, yes, we do have an easement in front, but we always thought that that was going to be for utilities and maintenance. We read that the ditch is coming 8 feet into our yard. That's not utilizing an easement. That's taking your land away and putting it in the road. Makes it, it's not your land no more. I mean, I worked hard. I never had a retirement program or anything like that. To save it. Whatever we could get. And I don't want to lose it. I love it here. And I don't want to have a bad taste in my mouth. And I don't want to be angry at Joel anymore. It's been a bad week since I first saw it. I don't want that feeling anymore. I didn't come down here for drama. I came down here to relax, retire, meet all these awesome people down here. I don't want it to change. I love it here. It's better than what I had. And if I keep putting 1 foot forward, that's all I want. I got a couple letters here from the people that own the empty lot. They couldn't be here. They're my neighbors from Jersey. They want to continue that. So they bought the lot, and they want to build here and live the dream. And this is from the guy that lives back by the retention pond. He couldn't be here. He's a chiropractor. He has patients this evening. So I brought these down. Could I approach?
Again, that would be hearsay evidence since they're not here to testify, so they cannot consider that.
Okay.
They had to be sworn in.
Okay. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anyone else who, okay. If you come forward, please state your name and address again for the record.
My name is David Locklear. I'm at 103 Indian Kettle Road. I'm the east lot that y'all want to have them put in a sidewalk in. If they put that sidewalk in, I got a row of beautiful, mature wax myrtle trees. They will take my trees. They will take my driveway. They'll take my culvert pipes and move the ditch closer into my yard. I don't think that's right at all. As far as y'all were talking about his retention pond, that water don't end in that little ditch. That ditch runs, I'm from this area, been here quite some time. That ditch runs out to the sound, and it's not very far. And the amount of Roundup that's sprayed on that property, it's going to go out there. So it didn't just die in this little creek or whatever. It goes out to the sound through a huge culvert pipe. But as far as the sidewalk cutting in front of my house, I don't know how many people in here have been down on Jarvisburg Road and sat there and watched the cars do 60 miles an hour around the curve coming from the school, the wrecks that's happening there. Why would you put a sidewalk to a road that ends and put them in the street where there's nowhere to walk at all? And now you're talking about the, I'm sorry about your name, putting a sidewalk on a man's property that's not even here to be able to speak, to use his easement to put a sidewalk over to the school. I don't think that's right. And I'm not trying to fight Joel against his property that he wants to do. I want him to have his dream. But you're tearing up everybody else's property by having to put these sidewalks in. I don't think that's right. We like our little four-lot community. It's very quiet, very pleasant, other than all the trucks and the cars hauling butt down the road. If a cop would sit there, I bet he could have a ticket to every second car that come around that curve. Guaranteed. I hear it because I'm on my porch every night. And now when the subdivision gets in, our privacy's gone. It will be gone. And we love the quietness that we have, other than the loud pipes on the cars. Also, if he's allowed to put that subdivision in, takes all my trees, and I look at the Plat, the new trees that he's got to plant only starts at the new division. It don't run out to the road where he's going to take all of our trees out. It doesn't even show that on the Plat. So if he's going to plant trees and all that, and he takes our trees off of our property just so he can put a sidewalk in, I don't think that's right. He should have to plant on both sides of the road all the way in and out. Because these folks just planting new trees, the people that just moved here planting new trees, that shouldn't be taken out. And you can tell I'm a little angry because I'm a little upset about this subdivision. And I want him to have his dream, but at the same time, like my buddy said over there, we had a dream too when we moved there, and we weren't told that all of our trees and our driveway and our culvert pipes and our yards are going to get tore up just to make a room for a little sidewalk that's 3 foot wide. So I would hope y'all take that into consideration, and I would definitely find out from somebody where that storm water is going, because I know the amount of Roundup that's used on all that property.
Sir, if I could ask, how many, you said you have crepe myrtles?
Yeah, they're huge crepe myrtles. And
Approximately
they would have to go if he moves that ditch. If he moves that swell for the sidewalk, they'll have to go.
And how tall are they approximately?
They're probably 15, 20 feet tall.
How many?
There's 3 of them.
Real.
2 with one I just planted. It's about this tall, but it's huge.
I planted that 25 years ago.
Yes, you did plant them.
Hold on.
But I bought the property. It's my property now. And they'll have to leave. So I totally object to the sidewalk. Not only that, I'm a very private person, and he knows that for me. He knows that very much about me. And I don't want people walking up and down in front of my house, especially to go to the end of the road and then turn around and have to walk back in front of my house again. I don't think that's right. And I don't think, and like I say, if he tears my trees down, he should be obligated to plant trees all the way from the beginning of the road and all the way back on both sides of the road, not just starting at his new subdivision if he takes mine out.
I believe that we have agreed to a condition, and I know this is not going to stop all the issues, but I believe that we've agreed to a condition that he will work with you to remedy the disruption of your existing landscape.
I would want that in writing.
Well, it will be. That's what a condition is.
That's what it is.
Anything stated in this hearing is substantiated.
It'll be in the permit.
So has this been approved already?
No.
No.
Okay. But I would very much consider, or have y'all reconsider on that sidewalk, because it goes nowhere. And you're putting in a road into a subdivision that's bigger than Jarvisburg Road or Forbes Road. It's actually going to be bigger than the road it dies into.
I have a question for our planning department,
Well,
and it
hold on,
pertains to
let's
him.
just-
When he's done, I mean,
That's
it might
fine.
go back to him, but.
Okay.
Okay, I was going to let you finish any comments that you have.
So, but I would definitely have your team investigate where the stormwater is running, because I know where it goes.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
But I'm very unhappy about it, I have to tell you. Him to put a subdivision in there, I don't mind. But what I do mind is him tearing up my property just to gain a 3-foot sidewalk. And who pays for all that? Does he have to pay for all that? Does he have to pay for my concrete driveway that's going on the road that he's going to have to move all the culvert pipes and everything? Does
Yes.
that come out of his pocket?
Yes.
It would. So, yes, I believe, Mr. Lockley, I think we understand your concerns.
I'm very concerned.
And I think we've heard those.
And
we
no, I'm
understand.
not a good friend of Joel's anymore, just so you know. Because I've been through a lot of, work with him.
Understood.
And I'm
Okay.
done with it.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right. Is there anyone else who did not sign up that has not
I believe
spoken?
the one gentleman raised his hand.
He's already been up here, though.
Oh,
and
yes,
spoke.
okay.
Yes. No. Oh, no. Hold on, sir. Yes, sir. Did you have a quick? Did you have a quick comment?
Yeah.
Okay. We just state your name and address again for the record. Just a quick comment.
100 Indian Kettle. I did some dimensions. I took that strip that you see with this like cross section of the proposed roads with the sidewalks and all that. You add all those dimensions up, it comes almost 60 feet. That's 20 feet wider than Forbes Road is from ditch to ditch. There's 20 foot of asphalt that's going to be going down the center, I guess. Sorry. But then there's 11 foot of grass on my side before you reach the ditch. That's where the water main's going to be underneath. You got the sidewalk on the other side. To me, it just doesn't make sense to push the culverts out further and have an 11-foot section of grass. Keep them where they are, the 40-foot, 45-foot from property line to property line. You could fit a 5-foot wide sidewalk, 20 foot of asphalt, some grass in between the sidewalk and the asphalt, and still have grass over the water main without touching them culverts. To me, it just doesn't make sense to spread it out that wide, make it wider than Forbes. Just don't add up.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I had a question for Mr. Kemp.
Yes,
and
sir.
when we approved those 4 things, so we always bring up the adequate public facilities, the doesn't risk or endanger. And I get rules are rules. It's a UDO. It's not to endanger public health or safety. All right. You take a 4-year-old kid that buys a house 2 houses down from one of these guys, their properties, and they're allowed to walk on the what's that? A 4-year-old child that walks down those sidewalks that are now in front of their home, not saying anything to them, to endanger public safety. I know from my law enforcement, the Jarvisburg Road, that curve, we do get some complaints, and they roll down that road. So if a kid walks down that sidewalk and can play on that sidewalk, because you'd let any kid pretty much play on a sidewalk, I would beg to differ on the UDO part, that would endanger public safety. He gets to the end of that road, and a truck comes right there. If that sidewalk goes all the way and butts to Forbes Road, that's a public safety.
So when they pave the road, if somebody wants to drive their bicycle all the way down there too, could the same thing happen?
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, if a 4-year-old child compared to a grown-up riding a bike, or even a 12-year-old child, and I'm not knocking the
If it's
UDO.
paved, they could go down there with a paved road just as well as a sidewalk, right?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I mean, like I said, if you tell a kid they can walk on the sidewalk.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Mr. Kemp, can you explain to me and everyone here, what's the purpose of the UDO requirement of the sidewalk? What's the purpose?
The UDO requires sidewalks, pedestrian pathways and trails to connect with existing or planned sidewalks. And so in this case, in the Connect Currituck plan, there is a pedestrian oriented feature, whether it's a sidewalk or just a pedestrian lane on the ultimately planned for Forbes Road. And so to connect to that kicks in this requirement of the ordinance.
So the purpose is to connect to Forbes Road?
The purpose ultimately is to have a connection of pedestrian connections throughout subdivisions, Forbes Road, along Forbes Road to the school. There is Connect Currituck does lay out a long-term plan.
Okay.
Which side of the road does it show it on?
I am not sure there is a specific plan laid out for Forbes Road. It just identifies Forbes Road as a road that would have a pedestrian.
Just looking at the map, it would have to be on the north side, so you'd have to have a crosswalk there and then come back to the school and crosswalk there.
Right, that's kind of my point.
So so later on down the road, the question I have then, if let's say 10 years from now, they put a sidewalk down Jarvisburg Road, and what happens now with the sidewalk? You have to, who's going to pay for the connection at that time?
Well, at that point, I believe, the county or NCDOT or some other entity would have to step in and.
So the sidewalk would
pay
get
for it
built.
after
In other
the
words,
fact.
the sidewalk will get built eventually.
Well, I don't know if we would have.
I mean, per the UDO and the Connect Currituck.
Well, the
If we-
UDO, this development is what triggers the UDO. So when the development is completed after the fact, there wouldn't be a development to trigger the UDO.
And if I remember correctly with the pedestrian plan and the planning, it's incrementally done as the developments occur, because once that infrastructure is in place, specifically a sidewalk, if DOT needs to straighten out the road, for example, they have to repair, replace any of our pedestrian type features. Those are all incorporated in any future development.
Yes, sir.
And so any expansion of that, DOT gets to pay for versus the county. Correct? And I had a question, Mr. Tate, if you don't mind. Sure. Did you calculate the value on the crepe myrtles in question that would potentially be lost?
No, I did not. I did not calculate those. That's outside of my wheelhouse. I'm not a garden person.
Building arborist?
Or an arborist or anything. but
Okay. So
I was aware that they were there, and I know that they were planted initially when the property was developed. And yes.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Gallup, if I could ask you a question?
I'm not sworn. I'm not here to give evidence, but I'll see what I can do if it's a legal question.
So my question is, the gentleman that was up here, assuming this gets passed, right, he is going to suffer material loss by those crepe myrtles having to be taken out. I am fairly certain that what would be transplanted or what would be replanted following the establishment of the road, the ditch, the swale, et cetera, that those are not going to be of the same caliber of those which are taken out of. Typically, when the county, and Mr. Bissell could probably back up this more specifically, but trees of significance that are removed, typically the county requires in the replanting at least, is it a 2-to-1 in caliper?
It's a 50%.
So,
You're right.
So it's a 2-to-1 replacement in caliper of the trees that are removed during whatever that process is. Is that also is that a condition that your client would be willing to entertain?
I'm not understanding of what a 2-to-1 caliber. Are you saying the size of the tree to replant would be 50%?
Negative. If you want to, I'll be happy to give you a real quick primer.
Two trees for one?
No, sir.
Let Mr. Bissell speak to him for just a second, explain it to him, and I'll have him come up and answer.
Take out a 4-inch caliber tree, you would put back, you still would a 2 caliber into it, it's 2 1-inch caliber, 1 caliber inch tree, or 1 2-inch caliber inch tree.
It's my opinion that if those.
The only question is, do you agree to that or not?
I don't think that it's viable. I don't think that with the width and the maturity of these beautiful trees that I could put half the caliber back. I don't know that I can even get that. I mean, these are.
Okay. Mark, if you don't mind, let me real quick, okay? So caliper is the diameter of the tree. What this is saying is if you take out a 4-inch caliper tree, one that's 4 inches in diameter, mean breast height, you are going to, as part of this plan, plant 8 inches in calipers. That's a 2-to-1. You follow me?
You're saying additional trees to equal the caliber? 2 to 1?
2 to 1, yes, sir. So, go ahead. Sorry, Mark.
If he
Golly.
removed 3 to make it a 2 to 1, he might have to put in.
Let's put 6 back.
No, he's taken out 3. I'm going to just go, because I don't even know the trees. Let's say you have 3 4-inch caliper trees. That's a total of 12 inches in caliper. You would be required to plant 24 inches, 2 to 1, of trees to replace it. So typically you're going to plant probably a 2-inch caliper crepe myrtle. That's the normal nursery size, maybe a 3-inch.
So you're going to have to plant 8.
Go ahead.
12 to 8.
Well,
8 to 12.
Please.
What if they don't want 12?
I believe that it actually is the other way around, that you would, if he takes out 8 caliper inches, he would replace 4 under the terms of the UDO. I could be wrong, but that's the way I recall it.
We have a couple UDO experts back
Yeah,
here.
we'll get an answer here.
Can we get the Jenny?
It's got to be the other way.
I think it's.
Was Jenny sworn in? Yes,
Yeah.
please. So, all right. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you provide will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God? Okay, thank you. Okay, Jenny, yes, please explain that. We'll get the answers to that question.
Are you referring to the heritage tree replacement standards of the
Typically,
ordinance?
something
Okay, so the
along
heritage tree replacement standards require that you plant back 1/2 of the caliper of trees that are removed.
Okay, so
Not twice as many.
Okay.
A 4-inch, 2-inch, you got to put.
So roger that. So let me go, thank you. So it doesn't apply to heritage trees, but I will tell you in caliper size and by a minor qualification, I used to be a consulting arborist. I went through all the CEU training. I know how to value trees. I haven't gone to CEU training, so I'm not going to tell you how much those trees are worth. But I can tell you that those 3 trees, if they've been in the ground as long as you're saying, are going to be worth a lot more money than, and he will suffer loss as a result of those trees being removed and not being replaced by somewhere around the value of those trees. So that's just the way it is. Anyway, that's what I'm offering up.
And he's already said he would deal with the condition, and if that's what he's got to do, that's what he's got to do. However, I would argue that it's not a loss. The trees were there within an easement that existed at the time of purchase. He's not losing the trees. He had the benefit of the trees that were in an easement that didn't necessarily have the ability to be there. But
I'm sorry, run that past me again.
The trees? He's not losing the value of the trees.
Are they on his property?
No, they're within an easement that they could be subject to something else. That easement is a bundle of sticks, right? You've heard that concept before in terms of ownership. Somebody took a stick out of the bundle that said, in this area, you're subject to having a ditch put through here, drainage or utilities. But what I'm getting at is, I'm just saying he's not losing value. He's losing what he wants, which is sad. I don't want him to lose that. And Mr. Justice has said that he's going to agree to that condition if you put that on there. If you require the sidewalks and they've got to take out the crepe myrtles, then he's going to remedy that. But I think the question of is he losing value, I don't think that that's an actual accurate response.
Can I ask, and I don't know if it's Mr. Bissell or Mr. Justice who can answer this. In the agenda packet, it says that there will be a homeowners association to maintain the ditches and the swells and that type of thing. Will the 4 existing lots at the north end of the property be part of that homeowners association, or is it a totally different subdivision?
The current homeowners express their desire to have a separate homeowner association. It's my desire to have one homeowner association for the completion of a 14-lot major subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
And also, in regards to the trees, once again,
You can't.
2 of those trees I planted 25 years ago, and they have significant girth. One of them was planted about a year ago.
They've heard from them.
Okay.
As far as the other homes, and I can attest to this because where I live off of Brumsey Road. There's multiple phases. You can't force.
No, that any kind of HOA was not of record when these
You couldn't
three
force
homeowners
those four
purchased.
if they didn't.
Yes,
Now, if they
cannot
wanted to be in it,
forced.
they could, or they could have their own.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
If
my
they
question.
consented.
So it's I'm not sure, once again, who's going to answer, but it is a separate subdivision. Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
I'm going to make a comment. It's not a question.
Okay, yes, sir.
I talked about this sidewalks to nowhere several times. If this was a 150-lot subdivision back there, I could see a sidewalk. But for 10 lots, how many people would use that sidewalk? It's just
Have no
ridiculous
idea.
to
We don't know.
require it.
We don't know. You're right. Might be all 10, might be 0.
I'd like to make a comment too. I'd go on record to say, like he said with the sidewalks, you're disrupting something that's been there for a while, and it's not like it's a 150 home subdivision or a 200 home subdivision, and that's a dangerous road that it abuts up to as far as you're going to have a sidewalk to it. And yes, you could ride a bike down it. I get rules are rules, but it's 55 on 158, and if you drive 59, nobody's going to stop you. Just saying.
And my concern for the sidewalk is, to me, it's almost more of a danger than it is any type of benefit, because if children do move into the subdivision, I would hate to think that they would think this is a viable option to walk to the end of the sidewalk and take a right on Forbes Road to go to Jarvisburg School. That frightens me just to think about it. And that's what this sidewalk is implying these children should do. And so to me, that's more of a danger. And I realize it's part of the UDO, and y'all made me understand that. But I do take exception that, to me, it seems like more of a danger than a benefit.
It's almost like an attractive nuisance.
It is an attractive nuisance, yes.
So I guess the question to maybe county manager or the attorney then, do we have an option until we change the UDO?
I believe we'd have to change the UDO.
Mr. Chair,
I mean, is that's we have to
That's what we
change
would
the
have to
UDO.
do, because right
Well, we
now
have
the
to
way
follow
the
UDO as it's written.
Yes,
Okay,
according
okay.
to Mr. Kemp, the way the UDO reads is it does require that sidewalk component.
But I understand that. But so we would pass if this is passed. So we would pass something that could possibly endanger public health. There's been deaths on that road. So from somebody walking on that road.
That would be a reason to deny.
That's up for your determination.
It's a denial then.
We've had areas where there are no sidewalks and had deaths, and people have screamed that we need sidewalks.
And I would say there has not been any evidence of that put on tonight. That's speculation as far as if that's a danger.
My thing where Commissioner Jarvis made a valid point. You're right by a school. I'm a kid. My parents aren't home. They work at the beach, and I'm 8 years old, and I missed the bus. I'm going to walk to the school and have a kid walk. I mean, that's endangering public health or safety all day long. UDO, UFO, whatever, UFC. It's a damn, it's common sense that it endangers public health and
But then we
safety.
probably need to have a work session on the UDO then to make some changes to it, to make some exceptions then, if that's the case.
Some flexibility.
That gets denied.
Yes.
Or a variance or something. I mean, like I said, I'm not against his.
And variance on the UDO.
Correct. This either has to get a thumbs up or a thumbs down
Yeah,
tonight. We can
can't-
change the UDO going
Or a
forward.
table.
Well, yeah, that would take probably 90 days to get language in front of us.
Easy.
So-
Chairman.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, it would be a question who's sponsoring the text amendment, and it would probably be, I'd say,
I think
3
it's
to 4
coming from the
months.
board.
Wow.
If it's-
Yes, sir.
Could I ask, is it Mr. Kemp?
Yes, sir.
Could I ask him a couple questions
Yes,
about
please,
this?
yep.
There might be another way around this, because I believe Ms. Morgan is doing the same thing I am, listening to what Mr. Kemp says, his ordinance says. And I want to, can you read the section of the ordinance that applies to require the sidewalk?
All right, it starts off 5.6.10A1, sidewalk shall be located within an existing public street, right-of-way or an easement dedicated to the public and running parallel to the street, pedestrian pathways and trails shall be located within open space set-asides. Then it goes on in 2 to list exemptions to that. Unfortunately, this neighborhood doesn't fit any of those exemptions. Then in section B4, sidewalks, pedestrian pathways, and trails shall connect with existing or planned sidewalks at property boundaries. In cases where the property boundary is within a drainage swale or ditch, the sidewalk connection shall terminate at the edge of the swale, ditch, or drainage easement.
Okay. So we're connecting to the Forbes Road planned sidewalk. That's why you're saying this sidewalk has to go?
The Connect Currituck plan.
What if the next sidewalk was 15 miles away? Would they have to run it through every subdivision and along every road until they got to the next planned sidewalk? What makes it so they've got to go this distance across other subdivision?
Because this improvement of the road is part of that project. The improvement of the right-of-way.
Let me ask this on the road. Can you read the first 2 sentences about the road?
Pardon, what I just read?
Yeah, if you do the first 2 sentences again.
Sidewalks shall be located within an existing public street right-of-way or an easement dedicated to the public and running parallel to the street. Pedestrian pathways and trails shall be located within open space set-asides.
Now, it's not a state-maintained road. So it's technically considered a PVA, correct?
It's going to be state maintained. It's going to be state maintained.
It's not now.
Well, as soon as he does it, it will be.
But what the UDO says, it says to an existing street. It's not a street. It's a PVA.
But the state's going to take it over as soon as he does the development.
The state might go bankrupt, and they might not. I mean, I'm just saying it's not a state road. It says the UDO says road. It's not a road. It's a PVA, public vehicular access. It's not a road.
Mr. Camp, are we currently doing this throughout the county, though, with other areas? Have we done this, and are we currently doing this?
Yes, sir.
So we have other areas that we've had to do sidewalks similar to this and other developments throughout the county?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
It's not a road.
Well, all right, is there any other, no, sir, we're good right now. We've heard your testimony. No, sir, we've heard your testimony. We're good, thank you. Is there any other questions from the board? Any other questions from the board at this time? Okay, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing portion of PB 2121 Algonquin subdivisions, and I believe their attorney wanted a statement.
I want to address each of the special use permit standards in a moment, but first I want to argue, one, that I believe the reading there I didn't hear anything that said you have to connect through another subdivision to a planned sidewalk. What I heard it say was you have to connect to a planned sidewalk. How many subdivisions would they have to go through to get to some other piece of land and put sidewalks in? I think you're only usually going to be required to do things within your own property. I don't think they probably didn't have to improve that portion of the road. They're doing it because they want to, because it's not their property. So I think there's a good argument that it doesn't require this sidewalk. That being said, if you believe that it does require this sidewalk and you feel like it has to have this sidewalk, I'm hearing a number of board members who think it's a bad idea. Not everybody. I'm hearing a number of people in the audience, and my client thinks it's a bad idea. My client is willing to request that you table this decision tonight and possibility of sponsoring a change that would make it so they didn't require a sidewalk. If that's something the board is willing to do, he's willing to request that. If not, Mr. Chair,
So you're asking this board if we're willing to table our decision until a future date to see if a UDO change can be done?
Yep.
Is that your request?
What I'm saying is that
I mean, that's the only way we'd have to change the UDO.
If you
To do away with the sidewalk, yes, we'd have
if
to
you
do that.
disagree with my analysis of what I think the UDO says, I think that's what you'd have to do. And there, whether or not I believe it that way, or Ms. Morgan believes it that way, or Mr. Kemp believes it his way, there's no reason not to clarify it either way in the ordinance and make it so that this situation might not affect my client or these people who are his neighbors and his friends in many cases, it seems. But what my client is willing to do is to wait another 4 months or 5 months, if that's how long Mr. Kemp thinks it would take for the board to consider that text amendment before you make this decision. Because he doesn't want the sidewalk, and he doesn't want his neighbors to have to deal with this problem anymore either.
Well, I mean, I guess it's,
The one problem is we have to be date time specific, right? I mean, we'd have to set it for December or January of next year for that meeting time, because this has been open and closed now.
yeah, because I've already closed the public hearing piece of this and all that, so.
And the other question is, how do rule changes affect this? I think.
Do we have to make a determination what's in place right now, or can we now, if things are going to change, do we have to hear everything all over again? If we have a DDO change?
I may be able to assist Ms. Morgan in answering that question. There's two statutes that.
Well,
County manager.
well, hold on. I mean, would the county manager like to weigh in on this a little bit?
I think you have the authority certainly to table your decision. You have closed the evidence. I think also with proper notice, you could in the future reopen the evidentiary phase of the hearing to take additional testimony or other evidence to consider as you make your decision sometime in the future. The other question with regard to date, time, and certain, I think that would only be necessary, again, if you were not going to make did not want to have another published notice of the hearing. So, I mean, if you were to establish a certain date and time specific to take the matter up again, you would not be required to advertise. But I would say just take that out of your equation.
Yeah, we're going to advertise
If you
the
decide
meeting
you want to
anyway.
continue it in order to give an opportunity to see if a text amendment.
I think just to continue without a date is a wiser way to go, because Lord knows.
And then when at some point in time, it can be noticed again for hearing if you want to reopen it for additional evidence or for consideration.
So I guess then when it's the board, when I ask the board for some action, I guess we can either, there could be a motion made to take action on it tonight, or a motion can be made to table it for other action. So
I will make a motion to table this. If we're not going to give a specific date, time, then I make a motion that we table it until we can resolve the issues with the UDO that this is presented.
Second.
okay, any further discussion? So there's no specific date set, so we would just re-advertise at a later date again.
Right.
Then. All right, have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's tabled to a future time to be determined.
Thank you very much.
Would the board like a 5-minute break?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 5-minute recess. Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get our meeting back in session and continue on where we left off. And that would be, I just had, okay, here we go. Okay, the next item is going to be new business. A, ordinance amending section 10-64 of the Currituck County Code of Ordinances, providing for issuance of user permits to county residents and property owners for the operation of utility terrain vehicles on the beach. And I believe Megan has this one.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what this new ordinance is doing is simply adding UTV or utility terrain vehicles, side-by-side vehicles, to the permit system, requiring them to get a permit. If you recall, the last board meeting, we did not have all the board members present. Whenever these ordinances are first brought before you, it does require a unanimous vote. But now that this is the second time on, it just requires a simple majority. So again, this is just adding utility terrain vehicle, side-by-side vehicle. It's underlined in the amendment.
Can I ask one question to the county attorney and possibly the county manager? Now, I know how we're amending this to UTV or adding that part of it. Kubota makes a utility terrain vehicle, and they call it an RTV, recreational terrain vehicle, which is the same thing as one of the other ones.
We get
So,
an
I mean, is it going to
acronym
fall
now?
under the same thing? Yeah.
Do we have a definition for utility terrain vehicle?
I think we do.
Yeah.
In section 10-64B, actually has a defined term for ORV, and it lists what constitutes an ORV, which includes or other off-road vehicles. So if this RTV is an off-road vehicle, it would be considered an ORV and only allowed to be permitted for county residents and property owners.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to, because if somebody bought one of those and then they couldn't.
Too many acronyms here.
Yeah.
All right, so tonight we just need to take action on this. Is there any further questions on this? Ask for a promotion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item. B, ordinance amending the code of ordinance by adding section 12-70, providing for the penalty for operating golf carts on public streets and roads in violation of Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances. And I believe Megan has this one again.
Yes, thank you. So again, this was also before the board at the last meeting, and it required unanimous vote. Now it just requires a simple majority. So in this amendment, it simply adds the penalty provision, so what that penalty would be to that section of the ordinance. The General Assembly passed a bill that required the penalty to be within the section of the ordinance that states what a violation is, as opposed to it being in a separate chapter or somewhere else within that ordinance. As well as, I think there was a Court of Appeals case that also stated that. So this is just adding what the penalty would be for violating that section within that section of the ordinance. So they're all together.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second from Mr.
Take that, Bob.
Commissioner Jarvis.
Hey, I got
Any
mine.
further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item C, resolution authorizing sole source purchase of Mueller Hersey water meters from the Water Works Supply Incorporated, doing business as Waterworks Inc., through sole source purchase pursuant to NCGS 143-129A6. Megan again.
Yes, thank you. This is a resolution authorizing sole source purchase as opposed to bidding, because with this, they are for, let's see, water meters. The county has already installed several of these. There is an exception in General Statute 143-129 to the bidding requirement when compatibility is an issue and you want everything to be compatible. So here, this would fall under that exception.
Okay, any questions? Okay, we have a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next item, item D, resolution authorizing the purchase with install of new railing by Art Graphics and Designs, Inc. through sole source purchase and pursuant to NC General Statute 143-129. Megan, you're up again.
Yes, again, this falls within that exception in the general statutes where you can have a sole source as opposed to the bidding requirement. This is for the railings. Here in this historic courthouse, there's already railings that have been put up, and this contractor has the same railings just so they're consistent, compatible with one another.
Any discussions?
Move for approval.
A motion for approval? I'll second that.
You can have it.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the board appointments, and the first item is under the Game Commission, and I have an appointment and an appointment to make, but before we get started, I'll let the county manager kind of go over what kind of transpired and why I'm doing this for my appointment.
Well, as Commissioner Jarvis mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, the local act that created the Game Commission was amended in 2009 to provide that now each Game Commission member must reside in one of the 5 commissioner residency districts and 2 serve at large. In this particular instance, that statute was overlooked, and so there were a person appointed to a position that did not reside within the required residency district. So you're going to be able to kind of untangle that tonight by first Chairman Payment moving to rescind the appointment of Louis Davis, and then the appointment of, I think, Ms. Ross, who resides in the appropriate district. And then likewise, I think we'll do a similar action with regard to Commissioner Jarvis's appointment.
So with that being said, I am going to, I don't know if I guess I can combine all these. I'd like to make the motion to rescind Louis Davis' appointment to the District 3 Gaming Board and appoint Janet Rose Ross as my appointment to District 3's vacancy to the Gaming Board. And then also Ms. Jarvis's submitment of her new appointment of
Thomas Newbern
to fill her open seat now.
And Mr. Davis is okay with it?
Yeah, I've already spoke to Mr. Davis and Ms. Ross, and they understand perfectly fine with it all, and there's no hardship whatsoever. I spoke to each one of them.
I'll second your motion.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Okay, the next item is for the Library Board of Trustees.
I believe that my nomination, I had somebody that was coming off, and Jeff Gardner had reached out to me via email. We spoke a couple times via email, and he's willing to fill the unexpired term till next June of 2023.
Okay, and we
also have an appointment, reappointment of Mike Foss to the Library Board of Trustees.
Okay, we have the motion for 2 appointments to the library board.
Is it 2 separate motions?
Or can we add them both together?
We need to make a motion to.
I didn't know she had one. I didn't tell her.
If there has not yet been a second, I think.
Okay.
I'd like to add my Jeff Gardner to fulfill through June 2023, as well as Ms. Kitty Etheridge's appointee of Mike Foss to a second term reappointment.
There we go. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next item is the item F, the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I would like to, the personnel policy revisions. I'm not sure tonight's the night to have that discussion, but I would like to know more about what's being changed, especially in light of some of the revelations or some of the getting up on speed that we had during the budget discussions.
So,
and as we learned, these types of policies become forever, and I think I personally would like to know a lot more about what's being changed.
Certainly. How about if staff prepares a memorandum to the board describing what the changes are?
That would be great.
Sure.
okay, so we will,
It's mainly references
out of the
to sick
consent
leave,
agenda,
so.
we'll pull item 3 out until a future board meeting.
For the personnel policy,
What's
like
that?
sick leave and all that.
Yes, so we'll pull item 3, personnel policy revisions, out of the consent agenda this evening and vote on items 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6.
Move for approval.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Owen Etheridge. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'll go ahead and recess from our general meeting and move into closed session pursuant to GS 143-318.11A3 to preserve the attorney-client privilege and GS 143-318 .11A4 to discuss matters related to the location or expansion of industry or business within the county, and GS 143-318.11A5 to establish or instruct county staff concerning the position to be taken by the county in negotiating the price or other material terms of a contract for purchase of real property, PIN number 0029000011C000, located on West Gibbs Road, owned by Jerry L. Old and Juanita F. Pendleton, trustee, to be used for any governmental purpose. Whew. Do I need a second on that?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
You should get a third.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, we are now in closed session.